everybody. Welcome back to Sunday Afternoon Smokes, your casual conversation podcast from the Upstate of South Carolina. My name's Chris. I'm your host. I'm also the owner and operator of The Cigar Box, a mobile cigar bar serving the Upstate and beyond. And if you've been listening to SAS, I appreciate it. If you want to support the show, the best thing you can do for me is just to give it a follow. Now, today I have the opportunity to sit down with Josiah Hartline. And hey, man, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Absolutely. The way I like to roll on my podcast is I like to just let my guests introduce themselves.
Yeah.
And so take a minute, say as much or as little about yourself as you like, and after that, we'll jump into it.
Excellent. So I'm Josiah Hartline. I'm a creative here in the Upstate. I do photo and video work serving the awesome local businesses in our area. I've been making a living with a camera for coming up on 6 years this year, which is really exciting. And I'm very happy to be here today. This is going to be excellent.
Sweet. Well, you know, Josiah and I brainstormed before the episode, and while we're both rugged men with beards, we decided that, 34 degrees outside that feels like 29, that's not primo cigar smoking weather.
Unfortunately not.
And it's not going to get any warmer because it's, 5 o'clock. So we just, we hold up here in the living room, so can't smoke in the house. And so we're going to still talk about cigars.
Oh, yeah.
But we're just not going to light any up. So whenever you shared with me some information about yourself before the podcast, you said kind of light to medium is where you like to be in the world of cigars when you're smoking. But that you're also newer to cigars.
Very new.
Define very new.
Not new in that I've never smoked before, but a very casual smoker, not very educated on like the styles. I've kind of found the stuff that I like and I don't like. But, if I was going to go into a cigar shop, I'd look for the brands I know or the cigars I know. I wouldn't be able to like discern for myself what I might like or might not like just off of the like visual information I'd get from a cigar, like the size or the shape or the color, that kind of stuff. I kind of have to go off of, I know I like this one. Lean on the cigar guy and the humidifier to help me out and find what I like.
Yeah. Well, would you, I know you said you were a very casual cigar smoker. Would you now put yourself in the category, and I'm just totally making this up, but would you say I would consider myself now an active smoker, meaning like there's some regularity there?
Yeah, absolutely. Any opportunity I have, I go and enjoy a smoke. But I don't. I'm also not like scheduling my time or going out of my way. But I have a friend and mentor of mine, Jake Henderson, who I believe you've had on before.
I have.
And he is kind of the guy who got me into it. We've spent many hours smoking over at either Social Cigar or Boda's, which is right by Brits Brothers Gym, which is where we both work out. So those are our general smoke spots. So when we're doing social stuff or he and I are just getting together, we normally end up over there smoking a cigar, which is excellent.
Yeah.
Good way to spend the time.
Shout out to Jake Henderson. And if you know Jake, I mean, he's a man that's small of stature, kind of cream puff, little guy. No, he's a strong man. The dude's huge. And he's at Brits Brothers Gym, so I have to try and remember to tag them in the episode. I need to write that down. But, I had him on. I want to get him back. We had a nice chunk of our podcast because we were recording during the summer outside, and it was just blazing hot. My computer's in full sun. It got overheated, shut down. Lost some stuff. Like I had an umbrella, it collapsed on us. It was just it was a dumpster fire, man. But Jake's a cool guy and running some cool stuff with Barbell Club.
Yeah.
So he got you in a more regular way,
absolutely,
into the world of cigars.
Yeah.
So being still a relatively new smoker, is it you on the mild and medium stuff? Do you just find for your flavor preferences, that's where you like to be instead of something that's heavy?
Yeah, I think that just being new to it and not having the taste or the tolerance for the the heavier stuff. I kind of went for the light stuff, but now that I've been more of an in-depth smoker, I find like a lot of the lighter cigars have flavor notes that I'm not really into. So I've kind of branched off into the more like medium or full body stuff. To give you a frame of reference, probably my favorite cigar would be like the Cohiba Blue. That's one I really, really dig.
That's a medium.
Yeah, it's a more medium there. But I also like the Fuente work of art. They have a smaller cigar. I'm also like, I have a hard time. The time commitment is probably what determines my size and my preferences with cigars. Just because I have a hard time sitting still, so I can't sit down for a 90-minute smoke all the time. So they have. What is it called? Like the Last Dance or Final Kiss or something like that. Same brand. That's like a really small cigar.
I'm unfamiliar with that.
But they're excellent. It's probably because I'm getting the name wrong. Is why you don't know it. If I had to guess, but
I mean, on the smaller side of cigars by Fuente, you know, probably the most popular is the Hemingway Short Story.
Short Story. That's it.
That's the one.
Yes. Yeah. Excellent cigar. I like the experience there. It's short and concise in its experience, but I also enjoyed the profile as well.
Yeah, it's like a 45 minute cigar. But that's the thing about choosing a cigar. That's one of the things that you should pay attention to as a cigar smoker, because it's a commitment of time. And if you don't have an hour or an hour and 15 minutes, you need to pick an appropriate size and ring gauge. You know, because even some of the ones that aren't so long, if it's a large ring gauge, like Inch by E.P. Carrillo or some of the Nubs by Oliva. Alec Bradley makes one. I'm trying to remember the name of it right now off the top of my head. I used to have some. It's not Chubb. It's something like that. I don't remember what it is, but they're deceptively short, but the ring gauge is so large, it's still going to take you some time to get through it. So, yeah, I mean, you really want to focus on how much, that's not the only thing, of course, like how much time do I have? But I'm with you on the Connecticut stuff. Connecticut can, most people who are new into the world of cigars, if they don't have somebody helping them, I would say probably 90% of the time they're going to pick a Connecticut, something that looks light. That's not how I handle people, but in my opinion, a lot of Connecticut cigars can, you know, after the first 15 minutes, they just get kind of bland. Yeah,
there's some kind of like overtone or some note that with the Connecticut that I really don't enjoy. And I can't place exactly what the flavor is, but it's just kind of off-putting with a lot of the Connecticut's I've had, where it's like I like the lightness. It's an easy smoke, but the experience itself is kind of bland. It's just not. There's not a lot there to chew on as far as the flavor profile that you're experiencing with some of the Connecticut's.
Yeah, no, I mean there are things that the manufacturers can do to really beef up the Connecticut, like especially if you're going to throw in a bunch of Nicaraguan tobacco in as the filler, you know, because Nicaragua tobacco is typically more robust and spicy. So you can still have a smooth, light cigar that has some zip to it to keep it interesting for the long haul.
Yeah.
You know, I have in my closet, I have almost a full box of Hemingways, but they're the classics. So they're like 6.5 inches, and it is, you know, I would say a mild medium to maybe medium. It's not overpowering in its flavor profile, but it does have a decent amount of spice to it for my palate anyway.
Yeah,
you know, there might be somebody listening like that doesn't have any spice at all. You know, but for my palate, and I don't mind the spice. When I first started smoking, I did not like it, but now I love it.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like, for me, when I first started drinking coffee, it was like breakfast blend coffee with sugar and flavored creamer and all that. But now, you know, I'm way beyond that, because they just get, if you do it enough, your flavor preferences will change. They'll be too sweet or they'll be too bland, and you want something that keeps you entertain's not the right word, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, something more complex for you to kind of chew on and find, experience more rather than just like when I started with cigars, I did a lot of the flavored stuff, and that's probably a relatable experience for some folks who are starting out.
Yeah,
because it's like it gives you something more relatable, and you don't have the palate to kind of discern what you're experiencing with other cigars. So the flavored stuff just makes it easy. Like I can remember when I was really, really young, some of the first cigar experiences I had were like the Acid brand. They have that like really strong, like chocolate flavor. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. But now I probably wouldn't go for a flavored cigar at this point, just because it's not like necessarily a crutch that I need. Not that it had anything wrong with the flavored cigars. I just think there's more to experience with tobacco with the other cigars that are available.
Oh, it's almost a world of infinite possibilities.
Absolutely.
There's so many brands. There's the major brands, then there's the boutique brands, and within those brands are multiple lines.
Yeah.
And options and their blends, and it's a mad scientist lab, and they just put out product after product, and I don't have any issues with flavored cigars or infused, however you want to phrase it. I still smoke them from time to time. My opinion on most things is that there's a time and place for everything, but yeah, whenever I do a lot of, especially if I'm at like a concert venue and there's a lot of younger people there, the flavored stuff just flies, man.
Yeah.
It's nuts. I don't carry the Acid line. I've had people ask me. I usually carry the Deadwood line by Drew Estate, the Fat Bottom Betty, Crazy Alice, and people love those. Nub Nuance by Oliva is very good, and it's like a coffee line. So they had like single roast, double roast, triple roast, and they've changed the naming up. I don't know if that's what it is now, but I think it used to be like espresso, macchiato, blah blah blah. But I think they may have changed it. But those are some good flavor options, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Carolina Cigar Company out of Asheville. That guy's a killer. He knows what he's doing. But yeah, man, time and place. But I do feel like if you start there and you continue in the world of cigars, you probably will mature out of it.
Yeah.
Onto what I call just classic cigars, just straight tobacco. And there's so much to explore in the world of tobacco, even beyond cigars. You go to pipes.
Yeah, I was about to ask you about pipes. Like if that was something you kind of experimented with as well as like the pipe tobacco and that kind of experience, because it's a whole other skill with pipe smoking.
It is. Yeah, I have a couple of pipes. I don't smoke them as much as I used to. I focus mostly on cigars. I found that I enjoy the cigars more than I do the pipes. And I wound up starting the cigar box, of course, which would not be as appealing as the pipe box.
Yeah.
You couldn't run around doing the same thing, because then you have to have just a bunch of pipes and then try and recollect them and disposable stems, and it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wouldn't work, but I do enjoy the pipes. The fragrance of pipes is amazing.
Yes, I agree.
It's a totally different animal.
Yeah.
But like even getting into the world of pipes and their blends, so you have all of the aromatics, which before the show you said that you just would like to know more.
Yeah,
and absolutely. I don't know exactly. That's a big umbrella.
Yeah.
But there's the aromatics, and by aromatics we mean things that have been topped.
Okay.
Quote unquote topped. So they have the tobacco, and then they will top it with vanilla or you name it. You know, the vanilla, cherry, green apple, and on and on and on and on it goes. So those would be those fruity flavored room notes, and they don't have to be fruity. I mean, vanilla or whatever. And then there would be like your English blends, and those would be more just tobacco forward. You know what I mean? And then you get into all the different kinds of tobacco, whether it's Virginia tobacco, burley tobacco, you know, and then I'm certainly going to wind up getting outside of my scope of knowledge here. I know much more about cigars than I do pipes, because there's blends that are like Oriental blends. You've heard of those? I'm not really even sure what that means, or why they're called Oriental blends. Is it tobacco grown in the quote unquote Orient? You know, I don't know. If you're listening to the show and you know, leave a comment on the podcast. Inform me, inform Josiah, help us out here.
Yeah, I'm very curious.
Yeah, I mean, there's English blends and Oriental blends, and then there's the aromatic blends. And I think as far as the blends go, there may be more, but that's like the three main categories.
Yeah.
But with a cigar, it's much less work. You cut it, you light it, and as long as you have a regular smoking cadence,
you're good.
You're good.
Yeah.
But a pipe has a lot more finesse to it.
It does seem to, and in all of my experiences with pipes, I was unable to maintain a decent smoking cadence, it would seem. And then that relighting process, I'm sure, kind of damages your overall experience, because that additional heat might take away from the notes that are there. Kind of similar with cigars. It's like if you're lighting it kind of aggressively, it seems to take away or kind of damage your experience in a way. I know I've been yelled at a time or two, or educated rather, at cigar bars on lighting properly. And then there's a whole debate about, matches, lighters, big lighters, all that kind of stuff, torches. So I'm sure that it's similar with pipes, that when you're aggressive with the heat, it might impact your experience.
Yeah, in my opinion, when it comes to lighting, well, let's just go back to the pipes for just a second. So lighting a pipe is and you may know some of what I'm talking about, depending on how many times you've smoked a pipe. I don't know, but you have your char light, your very first one, and like just the heat and the expansion, like you can see the tobacco grow up in the bowl. So it's a char light, and typically I think you do the char light, and then after that's finished, which doesn't take long, then you tamp. Generally, you want to tamp, and then you put the actual light to it. And I'm sure you're familiar with, like, they'll have them from time to time at cigar bars. They'll do like the longest ash contest. But in the pipe world, they will do like the longest smoke. Like, who can smoke their pipe the longest without having to relight it? Because it's a challenge. Because that all depends on how well you've packed your bowl.
Right.
How much, like, and I think people just trying to understand the world of smoking a cigar and smoking a pipe. Honestly, it's fire management.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
It is.
Because like the three... the fire is a trinity, right? There's three things you have to have in order to have fire. You have to have fuel, you have to have air, and you have to have a source of heat. Without those three things, you don't have fire.
Yeah.
So, your initial source of heat is going to be your match or your lighter. The fuel is the tobacco, and then you have airflow. And so depending on like how loosely or tightly you've A, packed a bowl, or B, like rolled that cigar, is going to affect the airflow. And so you just basically, after it's lit through the use of your puffing, you're maintaining a small ember to keep it going. And so, yeah, man, pipe smoking is, it's a finesse game.
Yeah, it is.
In that bowl, dude, it can get hot.
Yes, it's what I noticed when I smoked a pipe somewhat recently. I was like, it's a little bit more intense in the handling than a cigar, cigarette, whatever, in its execution, because it gets pretty warm.
Well, if your pipe bowl is getting too hot and it's hard to hold, I mean, you're being too aggressive. You're being too aggressive with it, and if you're saying, well, it's what people would call, you're like chasing the smoke, right? Well, if your pipe's too hot, that means you're being too aggressive. But if you're saying, well, I'm having trouble keeping it lit, this is why I'm having to like puff this thing like a freight train. Well, then your pack is not very good. And even packing a bowl, there's multiple ways people pack bowls. So it's it's a little bit of a rabbit hole. Yeah, man. But I prefer the cigars just for the simplicity of it. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, it's more conducive to actual business. I don't know, man. What else do you want to know about?
Well, I think
cigars.
I want to hit on a thing because I was thinking about the pipe and the cigar. What motivates me with the pipe is the aesthetic, like the look of the pipe. I mean, smoking in general, I have a fondness for the aesthetic, especially as an artist. Like, I love including smoking in my work just because with cigarettes, there's like a sense of freedom. And with cigars, there's a sense of sophistication. And then with pipes, there seems to be a sense of knowledge. Right? Like I can think of like...
It's very philosophical.
Yeah. Like I can think of authors like in their dens, like smoking or that kind of thing. Like looking at like old photos of Tolkien or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like there's such an allure with smoking in general. And it's funny to see the different ways that those motifs are like represented with the different ways that we smoke. And that's always been my biggest attraction to smoking in general outside of the experience is the look of it. That's one of the things I enjoy about cigars is like there's a level of sophistication with it. And there's also a whole world of knowledge, as you know, being a knowledgeable guy in this and being an educator in this, that comes with smoking beyond just, oh, this is a nice sensation or, oh, this is a nice experience. What do you think of like the general aesthetics of smoking and how they compare?
Oh, I'm totally with you. If you look at the history of smokers that would be famous, I mean, obviously this is a fictional person and it's fine, but like Marlboro crushed it.
Yeah.
With the Marlboro Man. And of course it was so famous you wind up like with Kramer in a Seinfeld episode, and he gets his, I don't know how, are you a Seinfeld guy? Yeah, he's like Marlboro Man on the thing, but, and I'm not as into cigarettes, but if you go back into like the 70s and 80s or even earlier than that, like they were everywhere, like newscasters are smoking, you could smoke on airplanes, NBA coaches smoking on the sidelines, and then movie stars. There's one guy in particular I'm trying to think about right now, and his name escapes me. Probably James Dean. Cigarettes. What's that other guy? Just a classic movie star. I don't know, but they're all over. But then you go into pipes. Then you got guys like Bing Crosby.
Yeah.
In some of those old movies, and he's smoking a pipe. I don't really know. Tolkien.
Yeah.
Would be in that realm. Another fictional character, Sherlock Holmes. It's totally classic. And then you get into the world of cigars, and you've got Ernest Hemingway, one of the most famous world leaders of all time, and probably, in my opinion, the most quotable, Winston Churchill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Massive cigar smoker. I mean, he's got his own...
He has his own cigar
His
style,
own cigar. Yeah. Like, it's the Churchill. That when you say Churchill, you're talking a 7-inch cigar. That's what we're talking about. Who's the other? Mark Twain or Samuel Clemens. Like, these guys... There is, without a doubt, a intellectual, sophisticated category that is carried with smoking.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously, there are trailer trash, Pall Mall,
right.
Just your average, person or whatever. But in that like upper echelon, which is probably where everybody wants to be, with their look and their style than the intellectual. And, like you would make a great fit, especially because of your glasses and just the beard and the photography and all of that. I mean, you could do some killer shots.
Yeah.
And, with my beard and probably just the way I dress sometimes, it would be fun to do a total cigar shoot.
I got to get you in the studio soon. I'd love to do
I would love to do it. I don't know where I'd put it,
we'll print it, put it out on the wall. Well, when you have your eventual podcast studio, you can just be very vain and have your own photo on the wall behind it.
Right. Yeah. But I think I'm curious to know if one leads to the other. You know what I mean? Because I feel like smoking... Here's the whole deal with smoking cigars and pipes. They lend themselves, if you're doing it solo, which you can, and I've said this a bazillion times on the podcast, that cigars and pipes, they are great for personal solo time, but they're very communal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you're on that solo, they lend themselves to contemplation.
Yeah, they absolutely lend themselves to thinking. That's kind of what comes to me. And when we're talking about like the symbol of smoking, there's, that like the author in front of his typewriter.
It's Hemingway and Tolkien with a pipe and cigar and their typewriter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can also think of like Hunter S. Thompson with like the cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And, he has that like gonzo thing going on. Like a lot of some of the greatest artists and thinkers of just about any generation had some attachment to smoking. And I think it's the ritual of it, the habit of it, like they kind of build their art around the act of smoking, and it kind of triggers those things and lets us be creative because we have our own little like system. And I think that's part of it. And then there's also, nicotine in itself lends itself to thinking. Like it increases neuroplasticity, and it has a slight like stimulating effect.
I need to get my wife on more nicotine after her stroke.
I honestly like.
She
I'm
would not
joking,
go
like,
for it.
Patches or something like that might be a little bit more like medically sound. Absolutely, we have pretty good evidence and studies in the more modern time that show.
I'm sure the pouches are medically sound.
Yeah, I saw you put in a pouch before that. What brand of pouch do you use?
This one's called Bridge.
It has a really nice packaging.
Well, yeah, I splurged for their aluminum
looks classic
thing, but I love, and that's the thing. I love the color, but I love the font. And toss that over there.
Oh man,
I love the font. I love the color. But I buy Bridge. Shout out to Bridge. Met those guys at Total Product Expo in 2024. No, 2020. Yeah, 2025. And I regular order from them because they put out a 15 milligram.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's where I'm at, and I'm happy there. I'm happy to be there. I don't need to go beyond.
I use a 3 milligrams, so I'm kind of lightweight on the nicotine.
That's
patches.
totally fine. You are where you are.
I can see myself ramping up pretty easily, so I'm trying to keep a lid on that. But now the issue is that I started the pouches to kick the vaping habit. But now I'm vaping and using the pouches. This is
not great.
This isn't working out the way.
Well, look,
intended.
I mean, I've smoked a cigar with a pouch in.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it happens, And have you? So you've got Rogue over there. Shout out to Rogue, and I tried Rogue. It wasn't for me. Like I started with Zen. And the only reason I started with Zen is because when I was doing Greenville Country Music Fest, they had a whole Zen trailer there.
Oh, nice.
Like this big, massive walk-in. It was really sweet. And of course, they let you buy, and they had 3 and 6. But in that Zen trailer, and of course, they're running promo for their product there. So you could buy 3 tins a day for $1 a 10.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Done.
Shut up and take my money.
Let's stock up.
Yeah, so that's where I started. I went to 3, and then I went to 6, and then I found some others that were 9. And then when I was at Total Product Expo in Vegas in January of 25, I met these people from Bridge, and and they were super kind. They and I talked to plenty of people about Bridge. You know, this, by the way, this episode is not sponsored by Bridge, but Bridge, if you want to party, let me know.
Yeah, not sponsored yet.
Yeah, not sponsored yet by Bridge.
They really do have some beautiful packaging. Like I didn't know this was an option, but man, I might switch over.
Switch to bridge.com.
Okay.
That's where you go. And they've got several they've got my favorite is the the mint. Mm-hmm. They have several different kinds. I have DM'd them on social media and said, please make one that's coffee. Because way back when I was doing Zen, they had a coffee, and it was great. The flavor was great, and it had just a touch of sweetness to it that I really liked. And so I want Bridge to make a coffee pouch. But yeah, man, there's a lot of studies out there about nicotine, and that it's not. It is a stimulant to the brain. Mm-hmm. On the other side of the coin, it also is a vasoconstrictor.
Yes.
So it does raise your blood pressure. But, and look, full disclosure for anybody listening, I'm not a doctor. Yeah. Pretty sure Josiah is not a doctor.
No, last time I checked.
Yeah. So this show does not give out medical advice. We do give out advice about cigars and how to choose them and how to smoke them and all that. So you're on Rogue, and I tried Rogue. And for me, and this is nothing against Rogue, this is just a personal preference, I didn't like the size and shape of their pouches.
That's funny because that's why I like them.
Okay, so fair and balanced here.
So the Zen pouches, I tried them first just because they're kind of the biggest player in the scene.
They're ubiquitous. They're everywhere.
They, even if I use a Rogue, I'd still call it a Zen or whatever, just because they have dominated the market. But
it's like a Coke.
Exactly. Yeah. Their pouches are kind of small, and I find that the flavor and the experience doesn't last for me. But with the Rogue, the very full flavor, I really like the wintergreen, and I like the size of the pouch and just like the overall experience that I get from Rogue. I haven't really branched out into too many other products. I've tried like the Velo and the Zen and one or two other ones, but I keep coming back to Rogue. Also, I think when I started, they were running a deal, which is probably how most of these folks get you. Is you go to the store, you try something, and they're like, "Oh, this one's 2 for $6 or whatever." And then,
hey, kid, the first hit's free.
Exactly, exactly. No, they definitely got me that way. But I also this is their like more metal tin. It's still kind of plasticky, but the top is aluminum, and I liked that the packaging that I got with the
Did
Rogue.
you come to cigars from the world of like actual dip or chewing tobacco?
No, I never really smoked cigarettes. I never really dipped, but I was always in the world of nicotine because my first job was at a vape store. So I started out of high school at this vape store, and God, what a terrible job it was, but that's just where I landed. So a lot of my experience was getting people off of cigarettes. And then we moved to another location from Cherrydale to Taylor's, and we kind of branched out into more of a tobacco store. And that was some of my first interactions with cigars because we had a little cigar display. What was that cat's name? His name might have been Chris, but he had little displays he put in stores and the golf clubs and that kind of stuff around town, and he gave me a little education, and I tried a few here and there, but I was kind of turned off to the experience just because I didn't have a palate for smoking at the time. But as I aged and as I kind of tried more things, I found what I really enjoyed with cigars. But my first nicotine experience is probably relatable for more folks in my generation was with vaping as opposed to like traditional tobacco. But no, I never dipped or anything like that. I maybe tried like the Camel snus packets forever ago when I was much younger, but they were too strong for me because I didn't have a nicotine tolerance because I never smoked and never dipped. And then I also was just kind of turned off by the dip experience in general. And that's another benefit of the pouches is that you don't have to spit or whatever, and they're not super messy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what got me switched over. when I first quit vaping, I used the gum, and I liked that experience.
Like Nicorette stuff?
Yeah, or whatever. It was like off-brand, so there was like a government like helpline where if you called and told them you were trying to quit, they'd send you a bunch of stuff. So I used that, and that was actually really helpful. But I was like, okay, the gum's pretty cool. And then the gum's actually like insanely expensive. I don't know if you've ever tried to buy Nicorette just from like CVS or whatever, but it's like $30. It's crazy.
Nicorette's for quitters, man.
So I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do the gum anymore because it's bonkers expensive. And then I tried a few of the pouches. And
No, I haven't ever done that because I've never tried to quit.
Yeah.
But and to frame that properly, I've never smoked cigarettes.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't really start. My first foray into tobacco was chewing.
Okay.
And I mean like chewing tobacco. I find that a lot of people confuse chewing tobacco with dipping.
Right.
Right. They'll just like somebody will put in a dip and whoever will say he's chewing. Mm-hmm. He's not.
Right.
There is a difference. Like when I say chewing tobacco, I'm talking Red Man.
Yeah.
You know, Levi Garrett, Beech Nut, that long leaf, and you just put a whole cheekful in and you do, you gnaw on it.
Yeah.
And so that's where I started. I've tried dip on rare occasions. I don't really care for it. It's so fine cut and gets all over your mouth.
Yeah.
And that's not for me. I do like to chew. Although I don't, my wife would just, she's disabled, but she'd find a way to kill me. If I did. So I don't, I'm happy with the cigars. Mm-hmm. And I've said this before, I'll say it again, just for purposes of this conversation. You don't, and as you know, you don't smoke cigars for the same reason people smoke cigarettes.
No, not at all.
So it's not when I say I don't chew Nicorette gum because I never tried to quit. I mean, I say that tongue in cheek because cigars are not an addiction.
No, not like cigarettes at all. No, not at all. I mean, one, it'd be a very expensive habit, and then it's just like the time commitment, the delivery method. It's just very different than the cigarette experience. Similar social elements, same material of tobacco, although I'm sure cigarettes are far, lower quality or whatever because they're mass produced, but very, very different in their execution for sure. They also, cigars just like smell a lot better than cigarettes.
Well, yeah. Cigarettes have all of the additives and chemicals and things in there that create addiction.
Yeah.
And of course, when you burn them, you get that really nasty, acrid cigarette smell that everybody knows what it smells like, and it stinks to high heaven.
It does.
And cigars don't have any of that. It's just a fully natural product.
Yeah.
That's just been grown, cured, gone through a natural fermentation process, and so you're just literally smoking the leaves of a tobacco plant. That's all it is.
Yeah. Even with, like something that would claim to be more natural, like an American Spirit, the experience and the smell and all of those negatives that you just described, I still find them attached to that.
Oh, really?
I mean, the American Spirit might be a little bit better, but it still smells like a cigarette. And like if you came home smelling like cigarettes, people would be like, ugh. But when I've come home smelling like a cigar, the ladies are kind of like, yeah, this isn't so bad. It's a different smell. It's a different experience. Shout out to Jake Henderson again. He'd call it like his cologne. He loves stinging like a cigar. It's like his jam. He's an animal with his cigar smoking. But it just has a different reaction from the public, like in a social stance when you're smoking a cigar versus smoking a cigarette. Like a lot of people would look down on smoking cigarettes, reasonably so, but the cigars don't seem to catch the same rep. Unless someone's super adamant against smoking in general, they might be like, eh. But generally in the public eye, it seems like cigars are much more accepted, much more they just don't catch that same negativity.
It goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's class.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
It's a class. It's an element of classiness that cigarettes just don't have.
Not at all.
So, yeah, for whatever that's worth, it's a whole different ball of wax, cigars and cigarettes. And I've talked about this a number of times, and I try not to bore my listeners with it, but the nature of the podcast is I'm always interviewing somebody new, and if we wind up on this topic, here we are again. But it's fine. So, yeah, let me, anything else you want to cover, cigar-wise, tobacco-wise?
I think that kind of hits it for me. I'm looking forward to kind of diving into this experience and finding out a little bit more. When it's not so blistering cold, we'll have to get back together and enjoy a cigar. I really like that.
Absolutely. It's chilly out there, man. No doubt. We'll definitely get together and smoke some cigars, and we can kind of explore. One thing I would encourage you though, because is you can order small tins of cigarillos. Mm-hmm. It'll be like a 10-pack of cigarillos. And when I mean TEN, which will come in a TIN. And so you can test the waters that way. So if you had 10 cigarette-sized cigars that were Maduro, you could smoke those, and that's going to be a 15-minute smoke. Yeah. And you get a feel instead of, all right, man, here we go. First time in on this heavy cigar, and it's, 52 ring gauge and 6 inches. It's a Toro. You could kind of order a few different things and test them out in a much more forgiving manner. It might be something to consider.
Yeah, before we move on from cigars, I guess my last question is, knowing that Cohiba Blue is probably my favorite cigar experience that I've had, what other recommendations would you have for me kind of in line with that I might like?
Boy, that's a good question. Is that mic falling?
It's slipping down a little bit.
You might raise it and tighten that thing just a little bit. What other recommendations in line with Cohiba Blue? Just a client like Romeo and Juliet. Their Bully, which is like a Robusto. That's a nice medium cigar. You caught me off guard. I wasn't prepared for this.
Let me narrow it down a little bit. What do you have in stock at the cigar box that would be in line with the Cohiba Blue?
Well, let me see. Let me pull up some information really quick and see if I can put you onto something here. What do we have here? Oh, seriously? I don't want to do all this. You know what? How about we just do this after the show?
Yeah. No problem.
We'll do this after the show.
I won't put you on the spot.
No, that looks bad on me on the mic. But I'll get you after the show.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to pick something up from the cigar box. When's your next event? I know wintertime's a little slow
wintertime's dead. Nobody's doing parties out in this weather. So, once spring starts to come, things will both literally and metaphorically for the business start to warm up. Yeah. And things will get going. So, there's nothing on the books for January, February. I think the city of Easley sent out a message the other day about their spring fling coming up in April, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a multi-day event. I might have to go back and look. I might be able to do one day of that. But Southern Roots Barbecue, have you been to that? Yeah, so Southern Roots Barbecue, this is, I think, the 1, 2, 3, 4, like the 5th annual. Takes place at Trailblazer Park. It's coming up. I'll give you the date. It is April 11th this year. And they bring in, there's pit masters from all over the country that come. It's live music. They've got a vendor's market. I mean, it's a bunch of great food, great music, cocktails, and it's a fundraiser for children with rare diseases. Okay. But I've been there every year, 4 years running. The first year I was there as a helper with my good buddy Jason Jansen of Broadwater Shrimp. And at that point, the cigar box was only conceptual. But at that time, by the time Southern Roots rolled around, I had already committed to it and had, like business cards made and all that stuff. And so while I was helping him, everybody that came to, the shrimp trailer, I'm like giving out cards. Hey, this is coming. This is coming. So I was committed to it. So by year 2 of Southern Roots Barbecue, the cigar box had come to life. Only though as a 8-foot folding table under a 10x10 pop-up tent, but I was there.
Yeah.
Year 3, I had my trailer. I mean, was it same day pickup? I'm trying to remember if Ryan Lockwood of Greenville Wheel Estate Collective is the one who built it for me. I'm trying to remember if I picked it. I think I picked it up from him, and then the next day I had that. And so I had not yet had the chance. I think it was same day. I hadn't had the chance to get it wrapped and put the new wheels on it and get the neon sign and all the logo and all of that stuff. So it was done, but it was not finished. And then shortly after that, I had it done. So last year I was back out at Southern Roots Barbecue in full swagger. And yeah, man, that's a little bit of background on the cigar box. But Southern Roots Barbecue, like I said, is a fundraiser for children with rare diseases. So the guy who started Southern Roots, his name is Jeff Ryan. I think it's Rhyne. He's a chef, and one of his kids, I think his daughter, came down with something called like Kleefstra syndrome, super rare, and yeah, man, he started this thing as a way to raise money to donate it to research on these rare diseases, and so now it's a thing.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so I want to get him on the show.
That'd be great.
So we're gonna tag Southern Roots. We're gonna tag Jeff Ryan. And so hey, Jeff, want to have you on the show, man. We'll smoke some cigars and we'll talk about Southern Roots and I define in deeper terms than we're talking about now. But before we move on to the next topic, let me just say that midweek I also do a short solo reflection podcast called Between Sundays. It's a new podcast, and the first episode dropped a few weeks ago. No guests, no outline, just a few thoughts if you want more than one conversation a week, and you can find Between Sundays on Spotify. So before we dig into how you got here, let's start with the present. So, and you gave us a little bit in how you introduced yourself, but tell people what you do, the kind of work you're offering to people in the Upstate, and the best way for somebody to get in touch with you if they're interested.
Yeah, absolutely. So I provide media services that looks like photo and video, generally for small businesses or brands who are looking to reach more folks in the Upstate. So if you're looking for things for ads or social media content or headshots, we kind of span a wide range there, but my preference is definitely in product photography and brand video. So I have a studio in Taylor's Mill where we set up and do, if you're an e-commerce brand or you sell a physical item, me and I have a stylist, Callie, we go in, we do excellent product photography. Or if you're a service-based business, we come in and capture your experience, do testimonials with your clientele, and just represent you well in a video format. So that's what I specialize in currently. It's looked a lot different over the years. I've been trying to make a living with a camera for about 6 years, so it's looked a little different. But now in the current year, I've kind of solidified down into product photography, and brand video is what I predominantly do. And if you're looking to get in touch with me, you can check me out on Instagram at Josiah Hartline. That's just about the easiest way to get in touch with me. You can also reach me at Josiah, or my email, josiah@upstate.press.
Okay. So do you run your your photography and videography business just under your name, or is there a company name, or how are you working that?
So for a long time, I had a different name that I did it under, which was Spiker Visual. Spiker is my family name. Before we got to America, we were living in Germany. My ancestors in a town called Spiker, and that's kind of where the name came from. But I had a mentor make the recommendation of me to stop using a brand name and start using my name as an artist. Because for a long time, I was trying to position myself as a company of multiple people doing multiple things, but it was really just me doing it. But as I developed those skills, it was kind of foolish of me to pretend to be multiple people rather than just be one person who is talented. So it was kind of a confidence thing. So when I first started, I was like, I'm Spiker Visual, I'm a media brand, I do all of these things. And then as I developed more into a true artist, it was like, I'm just Josiah Hartline and I do these things. And when more people are required, I have a team of people that I work with, and I bring them in, kind of manage that whole project. So my studio in Taylor's is called Gnosis Studios, and that's where we work out of. But for the most part, it's just Josiah, and whatever the project is, we get it done.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of a journey that may be subject to change. It might kind of solidify into a brand again, but I made the decision around 23 that I was going to be an artist more than I was going to be a company. So it's just Josiah Hartline.
Yeah, gotcha. And so, like you said, making a living with a camera the last 6 years, and we may get to Upstate Community Press, we may not, we'll see. But is that all you do? You've got enough business, you're full time as a photographer and videographer?
Yep, I'm very blessed to do the things I do. I live a dream that a lot of creatives kind of hope for, which is incredible, and I never expected it to shake out this way. In 2020, I was working a really crappy job that I hated. I mentioned the vape store earlier, and I bought a camera and quit and just tried to figure it out, and stumbled stumbled as in got lucky is not necessarily the case. I worked very hard to get to the business position I was in, where I found clients and found business and built a bit of a name for myself to be able to live off of the work that I do.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a mindset of a lot of people who look at somebody like yourself, or I don't want to use myself as an example, but even if I was somewhere and somebody saw my trailer, right? Or somebody who's doing really well, and to just think, man, that guy, he's man, he hit me. He's lucky. He did.
Yeah.
No, I'm not lucky.
Yeah.
I worked really hard. I worked really hard to get where I am, and I did a bunch of stuff that most people don't want to do.
Yeah.
That's why I have that trailer. That's why you now can work full time as a creative, as a creator. It's not, and look, I think there is some element of quote unquote luck. I don't really believe in luck unless it's bad luck, but if you work hard and you're willing to do the things that most other people are not willing to do, you will see some success. Now, the quote unquote luck part for me comes in when you and this other person are doing relatively the same thing and you're both working really hard, and this guy just, for whatever reason, goes off the charts with his popularity. Sometimes it seems to me there's not really a rhyme or reason why that happens. For instance, and this is a poor example, I'll admit that. Like, I do some social media because I have to. It seems a necessary evil if you have a business, But a couple of weeks ago, I posted this video of my wife in physical therapy, and they were practicing what's called mirror image therapy, when you're literally sitting with a mirror. And I don't want to explain the whole process on the podcast because it doesn't really matter. I think most of my posts get however many views, maybe 75 on a good one, get a couple hundred views, whatever. As of this current moment in time, let me see. As of this current moment in time, this video has been viewed almost 35,000 times. And I have no idea why.
Yeah. So it's, I can break that down a little bit. First of all, I did see that post. Congratulations on striking a little bit there. So
it doesn't help the cigar business.
No, it doesn't. But here's the thing is that the eyeballs are eyeballs. Right. And if someone clicks into your post a little bit deeper, you might still have some conversion there. And that's why when I talk to brands with their social media content and they're like, don't want to do some of the goofy trends or whatever kind of stuff because it doesn't relate directly to their business, it still helps. And it shows you as a person, you have a life outside of your business, and people don't buy services as much as they buy people. So having a little bit more life to your and a little bit more personality and a little bit more vulnerability with your posting benefits you. And you've kind of seen that with this post. And I won't go into the specifics as why that video did well, but you have something visually intriguing that you don't understand immediately. And you also you're looking at a therapy that is, not as well understood. So you have a very good, strong visual hook in that, but we'll leave that alone. But I do think that as a brand, it's very wise to have a more personal approach. And that's something that I've been trying to implement with my brand as well, is like people buy people. They don't buy services. Everyone's a photographer. Like everyone does marketing.
A saturated
it's
market,
so super
man.
saturated. And even in the more niche stuff I do, like in the sports world or with product photography, which is a little bit harder to get into, it's super saturated. And even yourself, you have an incredibly a great niche business, but I'm sure there's other folks who do mobile cigar.
Yeah, there are.
And
they don't do it as well as I do.
I'm sure they don't.
I'm just kidding.
No. Well, you have a really great model and you have a beautiful presentation to your business, which I really admire. But even with a niche, it's important to have that personal element. So I think that's kind of what you experienced with that video.
Interesting.
And you just had an incredibly strong visual hook. Like when you see that video, you're like, what's going on? You have to watch it a little bit longer. And longer watch times increase to Instagram showing that further. I'm sure you probably also had a pretty strong outpouring of support from the people who do follow you and interact with you. So you maybe have more people liked or commented or shared or whatever, or maybe they like sent you a message from that video, that kind of thing. Those are all things that Instagram really loves to see. So and sometimes you just strike gold, honestly. And that's why you should post all the time, is you never know what's going to hit. So I would say those are the reasons why you saw a stronger interaction with those videos.
Okay. Interesting. Well, if you're listening, word to the wise on how to use your social media.
Yeah.
I do it out of bare necessity. I wish I had somebody to do it for me because it's not something I really enjoy doing.
You got to use it though, man.
I know.
It's the cheapest form of advertising. There's no risk. There's basically no cost. Well, there's some risk, and it sucks to put yourself out there, and it is scary. But it is without a doubt the best way to get more people to know you exist.
Yeah.
But it's terrifying. I'm not good at it either. I hate posting. If my world wasn't built around social media, if my business wasn't built around Instagram, I probably wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
Because there are negatives that come with Instagram. But it is, as a small business owner, the greatest way to get yourself out there and connect with your community.
Yeah, and I've had people tell me you need to be on TikTok right now. TikTok is like the #1 search app, and I'm like, you know what? I refuse.
Yeah,
I refuse to do TikTok. I'm not going to do it. I don't even do Facebook. I use it, but only insofar as because it's the same company.
Yeah.
All my Instagram feeds
Goes to Facebook
post to my Facebook
Yeah.
account. That's all I do. I'm not doing anything else. There's some other app that came along the way or in recent months or years, and it's for business owners in their circle, and they want to refer.
LinkedIn.
They want to refer, huh?
LinkedIn.
No, it's not LinkedIn.
Okay.
It's something else. It's like, I want to be able to refer business to you, blah, blah, blah. And these are people that I know, and I've gotten several invitations to join their circle or their ring or whatever the heck it's called. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't need something else to keep up with.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to do it.
It's a full-time job, and that's why I have a job, right? It's because people don't want to do the social media aspect.
Well, but you have that's no. I mean, but you do photography and videography, and that's not something that's easily out. That's not something that you can easily do yourself unless you have the skills and you know what you're doing.
Yeah. And social media management is definitely a large portion of what I do. It's not necessarily the services that I advertise the most, because I run into a lot of folks like yourself who don't want to deal with it. But I would say, just to touch on the TikTok thing quickly, when you're picking your social media, it's important to really think about the people that you're trying to target, right? Like, your ideal client as a cigar business is not going to be on TikTok.
No.
Right. Like, they're more likely going to be on Instagram or Facebook, or just like the meta, ecosystem in general. So TikTok, while there is a lot of eyeballs on TikTok, there's a lot of money to be made on TikTok. I don't think you would like TikTok. You wouldn't enjoy the experience, and TikTok wouldn't really like you because they're pretty strict on their content there. If you're selling T-shirts or whatever, and you'd be like, yeah, TikTok's probably a good play. But for you as a provider, your best bet would be something like a nice, consistent website, and linking all of that content to Instagram so that Google sees it's you're an authority.
I need to overhaul my website. But
I think your website looks good. I do think there's
you're very kind, but I'm like,
on yourself. But
no, like, for instance, like when you go to my website, you don't, like, the first thing you should probably see is me or the trailer.
Yeah.
That's not what you see. And so that's just, again, with everything else I'm doing, to sit down and redo it. I mean, I could, and I should, and I need to. It's just, do this.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, it's hard as a business owner because you have to do so many things and wear so many hats that it's easy to neglect the website and the social media and focus on the things that you can do, like hitting the ground and doing the networking, because those things are more comfortable. They convert more immediately. But the website and the social media are the things that give you long-term, that like organic growth.
Yeah.
But they are a long-term investment, and they're a significant time sink. And then unfortunately, a lot of the tools that are available to you as a business owner to do those things, to make it easy and accessible, put a lot of restrictions and kind of like horse blinders or guardrails on you as well. So it inhibits a lot of the long-term growth we see. So those are really hard things for folks like ourselves to navigate as business owners, because you don't have the knowledge. Like, you're not going to go educate yourself on how the best way to build a website or the best way to run your social media. You're like, I need to know everything there is to know about cigars, and I need to go shake hands with folks who want my services more immediately. Mm-hmm. So these are hard waters to traverse, and that's kind of with where my business comes in. Is we go and we have those conversations, and we kind of do these audits and try to have these discussions so that I'm not just taking a pretty photo. I am going with a plan, and here's how we're going to educate your audience. And here's how we're going to use these assets, especially in this day and age. It used to be you just throw a photo on Instagram, a little video or whatever, and that would be enough. And that's, videographers and photographers are just make the asset. But now it's much more so. You also have to be a strategist, and you have to come with data, and be able to have those conversations with businesses. So you're
doing more than just video and photos.
Yeah,
you're offering like a full service
Yeah, I do. I do a full service thing, and that's what pays the bills. But I present myself as an artist because that's how I feel about myself. Is that if I could just take photos, that'd be swell. But that's not the reality of having a long term relationship with a business. You have to be able to provide more value than that.
Yeah.
And it's again, it's tough because all of these things are so over communicated. Again, everyone's a marketer because they can post on social media. So when you tell folks you're a marketer or whatever, they get really turned off to that. So I try to lead with I'm a photographer, I'm a videographer, I'm an artist. And again, I sell people on me as a person because everyone has the skills I have. I have to be something different. So you sell the person and then you provide really good value after the fact. So once I get into those conversations, then they kind of become more aware of, oh, I'm actually getting all of this. And that's why it costs this. It's because I have these additional skills. But it's a lot easier to say, hey, I'm a photographer than to be like, hey, I'm a full stack marketing guy and I do X, Y, Z, and I'm going to explain to you all of the different ways that I'm valuable. It's uncomfortable to have those conversations. And it's also like perhaps a confidence thing for me to go and present myself that way, because that's a lot of responsibility to go and back those things up.
Yeah, because they're going to want an ROI.
Yes. Yes. And it's hard for photographers and videographers to offer ROI unless they have these other elements in place.
Well, let's backtrack. We kind of got off the rails there didn't intend to talk about social media, and that's fine. But, you were talking about just the job you hated, and you had referred to it as your wage slave job.
Yeah, I was a wage slave.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so that gives a little bit of insight into your mindset at the time.
Yeah.
How were you feeling?
Oh, terrible. It was the worst. I had an incredibly scummy boss who treated me terribly. But I was 18 and I knew I needed to work and I loved to work and I just wanted to have a purpose. And I thought I would have a cushy job, hang out in a vape store all day. And I barely got through high school, like second of worst in my class. And I was like, I'm just going to go do this and I'll figure it out. So I kind of found myself in this position of, oh, I got an easy, cushy job. And what seemed like a really great deal turned out to be a terrible prison for myself and my development as a man. So I'm 18. I get this job. It seems cool. The guy I'm working for, he drives a Porsche. He has a family. He owns 2 stores. I'm like, oh, I kind of got by the materialistic things that I saw. And then all of a sudden, he doesn't want to pay me. He doesn't want to pay taxes. He wants to pay me under the table, and he wants to pay me less than minimum wage under the table. And he wants to present himself as family to me and kind of manipulate me. And at the time I can remember vividly, the second week I worked there, I'm 18, but I've never had a job before. I don't have any support. I don't have any experience. So he's talking to me about pay. I'm like, oh, I think I should discuss this with my dad. And he's like, if you bring up your dad again, we're done.
That's a red flag.
Yeah, but I didn't know any better, man. I just wanted to work, So I'm like, okay. And I think part of that also is this guy had a relationship with my father previously. This guy used to sell tools. My dad's a mechanic, and he knew my father. And he knew my father was a really straight up, very straight and narrow kind of guy. And he wouldn't approve of the scheming that he was up to behind the scenes. So he really didn't want my dad around. All of this I was completely ignorant to. And I was like, okay, this guy, he's telling me he has my best interests in mind. And he's telling me I'll make more money if I take money under the table or whatever. So that was fine. And then also what I didn't foresee is that I was this guy's only employee. So I'm pulling 60-hour work weeks, but because he's paying me under the table, I'm not getting overtime. And so all of this I didn't figure out until much later. All I knew is I had a job and I got to vape and sit around and do nothing all day and help people get off cigarettes. And I was doing a good thing. So I did this for, 3.5 years or so.
Curious, is that place still open?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, it's still open. there's many opportunities that came from that job. I learned how to sell. I learned how to help people. I learned how to listen. I learned how not to run a business. And eventually this job turned into an opportunity because the business was run very poorly and it wasn't very busy. So there was a lot of downtime. So I brought a computer to work and I made online friends with a buddy of mine. His name's Wes Horton. And he needed a video editor because he was a musician and he was making videos on Instagram. So we developed this relationship and I started editing his videos. So these like music video type things. He's a very, very talented metal musician, vocalist, multi-talented guitarist, pianist, whatever. And so I started making these videos and it kind of reignited that spark for creation that I'd kind of forgotten about because I'd taken some camera classes in high school. A little bit before that, I was making videos for myself when I was younger and I'd just completely forgotten that I absolutely loved it. So that started, I did videos for Wes for about a year. And I was like, man, I'm pretty good at this. Like, I like this. I've developed a skill set. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to go find someone to sell this to. So I met Ollie Pierce, who owns Brits Brothers Gym, and he had come into the store. And he had just opened his location off of Airport Road, which is where Brits Brothers is located today. And he needed social media and video help. And I had recently purchased a camera and Ollie Pierce wrote me my first check and that's how I started a business. And about 6 months into that, I quit my job right after COVID had ended and everything had started opening back up in South Carolina. And I started running. So that's kind of my very brief experience with that company. But despite all of its issues and all of the negative experiences I had, it set me up for success as a creative.
Yeah.
Because it taught me, how to keep looking for opportunities and how to start to video edit and how to start to be a creative, and gave me the freedom to work a job and moonlight as a video editor.
Nice.
So when I started out, I was a video editor. I wasn't even a photographer at that point. Photography didn't come until a little bit later for me, but it was enough for me to get started. And there's a million crazy stories I could tell you about the store. When I was working at the store in Taylor's, it was insane. We were in the same location that a tobacco store had been in previously that was very notorious for being kind of sketchy. So we inherited all of their customers and it was just insanity. Every day I'd walk and talk to a different, person who walked a very different life than I did, to say the least. I got robbed at gunpoint at one point. There was a gnarly car accident just about every week in front of the store and just insanity. People like having breakdowns in the parking lot. It was just very, very intense life for a 19-year-old trying to figure out what he wanted to do with his life. But it was enough for me to get curious about people's stories. Because I'd have conversations. When you work in a sales position like that, like people kind of have that like bartender syndrome where they just like tell you their whole life story, because with the e-cigarette thing, you'd be spending a lot of time with these people as you're walking them through this process of smoking or, quitting smoking. So you just like get this whole dump of their life story. And I enjoyed that part, even though a lot of these people were just, down hard or mentally ill or hooked on drugs or whatever, like people who are kind of on the fringe of society. I really enjoyed hearing those stories and kind of living vicariously and digging into those things. And that got me curious. So COVID ended, the store was back online and I was like, I just can't do this anymore. I'm not making any money. This dude had gotten arrested for tax evasion. I did not think the store was going to, it's crazy.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
So I was like, I got to get out of here. And I was dating a girl at the time who was just like, you have to do something more. Like you have a skill set. You have to leave this behind. So I did.
Yeah. That's what I enjoy about my podcast. When I originally had the idea for it, and look, I really enjoy doing my podcast. This will be episode 54.
Okay.
Now with
Excellent.
you, so I'm in it. I'm gonna keep going at it. And so when I originally had the podcast, the idea, and it was interviewing people, which is what I do. But as I've gotten into it, and I was a pastor for 12 years and talking with people and helping people, all that, but it's just kind of morphed into this thing for me personally. I don't know if people can tell it. Like, I'm just curious. I'm just curious about people.
It's so fun to be curious, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just curious about people. I'm curious about their backgrounds. I'm curious about their story. I'm curious about how they got from A to B to C. I'm curious about the process, and I just want to, like, my podcast, because I think I don't know if I said this to you, but it's a long form podcast. And I was talking to somebody about it just last night, that you can't really do anything of substance with a 30-minute podcast, and so I feel like my podcast, we start with cigars, but cigars are not the focal point. They're a nice feature, but I really just, I want to help the people. I want to help the businesses of the Upstate get their story out, and I want to help the people of the Upstate know what's being offered to them, but also with hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours, 2.5 hours on a podcast, we can explore the business, but also unfold who this person is.
Yeah.
Get into not just, I'm a videographer and a photographer, and my straight up skill set is product photography. It's like, yeah, that's cool, but who is Josiah Hartline?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I love this whole thing.
It's been a very interesting experience, and to try to cut out something for myself, because I was always like a punk rock kind of guy. And that's why I never wanted to work for someone else, especially after the experience I had with my first job. I was like, I'll never work for anyone else again. So it's being a creative and working for myself. It was the only option.
Yeah.
There was no other backup plan. So it was like, I'm either going to make this work or I'm not going to eat. And I've always kind of had that mentality.
Yeah.
And it's made for a very interesting and long story.
Yeah. Well, backing up, man, I don't know. Just once you get that, really crank on that thing, make it tight. It keeps dropping down. But you mentioned earlier about kind of like failing your way through high school.
Yeah.
And looking back, like considering where you are now, and look, high school, I don't know. We've learned a lot over the years about how differently people learn, right? Some people bloom early, some people much later, some just don't do well in a traditional classroom setting for any number of reasons. But okay, you're a guy that like failed his way through high school. You said like second worst in your entire class. Went through this crap job in a vape store, all the stuff, and now you're a guy started his own company, working full time at it, doing Upstate Community Press on the side, kind of a thing. Which sounds kind of similar to what I'm doing as a podcast, but in a different format. But now you've got a direction, you know what you're good at, you know what you're headed toward. And high school is not an indicator of anything. Richard Branson is a good name, Virgin Atlantic. Hello. I think he's a high school dropout, but like looking back, do you think that it was more in high school about not having a direction at the time, or being in a system that didn't fit how you learn, or a combination of both? Or
yeah, so I was very blessed with my high school experience. Despite my poor performance, I had every opportunity to do better. So I went to Greer Middle College, which is a charter high school on the Greenville Tech campus, and they had a very unique system of teaching. So it was not a traditional high school experience. You could retest on everything. A lot of it was project based. You had 90-minute classes in a block schedule, A/B, rotating classes. So you had a very interesting experience there. And I think that most of my issues wasn't necessarily my capacity to learn, but I just hadn't experienced discipline in my life. not in the way that I have it now. And I test a lot of that to weight training. I did not figure out how to manage my time or do well until I really started to have weight training in my life. So that's one of my biggest regrets is I wish I had gotten into it earlier. But in my high school experience...
Yeah, well, you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know, but I did have good teachers and I did learn good things, and I built lifelong relationships that I'm incredibly thankful for. One of the guys that I work with Upstate Community Press is a cat named Duncan Morrow, and I met him in high school. And that's been an incredible friendship that you know, I'm very, very thankful for, and I would be a very different person without. So I think that my high school failures were just not having a goal, not having a disciplined look at life. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't really fit in. I didn't care because
well,
I didn't
how
have
many
anything to care.
how many 17, 18-year-old kids do?
Yeah.
No,
which is
what
fair.
you want to do for the rest of your life. It's such a giant weight to put on the shoulders of somebody who's that age. And here's as a parent, and I've got 4 kids, the youngest of whom is 13 now. And any parent who actually loves their children, they want them to be successful.
Yeah.
Although you and I talk, my measure of success is probably different than a lot of people's. But and when I say successful, I mean I want you to have a vocation that will pay your bills and take care of you. That's what I mean. You know, you don't have to have millions of dollars in a 5,000 square foot home on 5 acres to be successful. If you have that, good for you. Great job. If you don't, that's okay. But what I have tried to teach my children is I don't really care what you do. I care how you do it.
Yeah.
And I care about the kind of person that you are.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do, so long as it's morally respectable. Let me put those parentheses there. But I'm more interested in you and your character and how you view life and people.
Absolutely. And I think that my parents were always very supportive of me, even in my failures, that they were so loving and so supportive that it almost not necessarily was a hindrance, but I didn't have this, I wasn't motivated by fear. If I got a bad grade or failed something, my parents would support me and help me learn from the endeavor. I wasn't scared of doing poorly. So there wasn't an element of motivation there. They really put the reins in my hands, which I'm thankful for because it helped me figure these things out. But that's different than a lot of other kids' experiences. Because I can't tell you how many kids I knew who had pretty gnarly parents who were very harsh on them or very discipline oriented or something like that. There wasn't a lot of love in that home, that probably did better in school than me just out of fear. So with my high school experience, I wasn't terribly motivated. Like I said, I was kind of a punk rock kid, anti-establishment. I didn't like school because I didn't find it useful, a lot of the things that I was learning. I was like, how am I going to apply this to what I want to do in the future? Not that I knew what I wanted to do in the future. I just knew it probably didn't involve algebra. But the classes that I didn't fail are ironic. So I never failed English. My best class to date was accounting, which is ironic.
That's a good skill to have, though, for a business owner.
Yeah. And then I was very, very blessed with a film class. And that's where I learned how to use a camera. That's how I learned how to storyboard and use lights and run a set. And that had such a huge impact on me. So those things I did take away from GMC absolutely fueled my success.
Yeah.
But when I failed Spanish, that hasn't really had a huge impact on my life.
Not super important.
Yeah. Oh man, that Spanish teacher hated me.
That's funny, man. We live. You know what? Let's take a break.
Yes,
really quick. We'll be right back. All right, we are back with on Sunday Afternoon Smokes with Josiah Hartline, and here's something. We live in a world right now. and have for a long time when it comes to work. And people want you to have experience and want you to have credentials. But, you know, you went to high school, went to a vape shop, didn't go to college for photography, didn't go to college for, you know, video editing or video creation or whatever the heck it would be called. I have no idea. So there's this clash between credentials and actual experience. And so you didn't really find your footing in a classroom, though you got a taste of it. You had to remember that, hey, I really like this camera stuff. And you found it editing for your buddy Wes. So, like, what's your view on somebody like credentials versus experience?
Yeah, I think that there is a lot to learn credentials wise, right? Like there are some incredible programs out there. I know a lot of folks who have gone to school for the creative stuff. I also know a lot of people who are incredible artists who went to art school and then turned into terrible, terrible artists. Like I've seen that a lot. And that was one of the worries that I had about going to school is that they kind of institutionalize your creativity in a way. So experience.
Yeah, they create a box and say you have to think in it.
Yes, which is like the worst thing you could possibly do to an artist. So I think that mentorship and experience are far superior. So for me, getting into it, like I had no experience when I started out. Like I literally bought a camera, started watching YouTube videos and started making stuff and just said yes to everything. I can't tell you how many times someone was like, hey, can you do X, Y, Z? And I was like, yeah, no. No, I can't. But I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to give you a good price on it, or do it for free until I can do it and charge. And that's always kind of been my thing. And in the production world, we always have test days or pre-light days where we're working beforehand. And that's kind of been my method, is that if I'm going to go offer a new service or try to figure out something, I'm going to go do it for myself or do it for a friend. Before I go and sell it. So that's kind of where the experience piece comes in, is I go and try to figure something out before I go and say that I can do it. But when you're starting out, there is a lot of just saying yes and hoping for the best. Yeah. And I have been blessed enough that has worked out pretty well for me. And I haven't been burned terribly by such choices, but it's hard to get your foot in the creative world.
It's hard to get your foot in any world, to be honest. Like, let me tell you, so my situation currently is that, you know, I'm a full-time caretaker, more or less. Then I run my cigar box when the season's proper and I have events, and then I run my podcast. And so I do have a LinkedIn profile, and I have a profile that I've created in a couple of other job places, like one's called Twine, one's called Contra. There's a couple out there. So I've retooled it. And I mentioned, you know, I was a pastor for 12 years, which involves a lot of writing, a lot of public speaking, a lot of research. And so now I've retooled my resume and just kind of my online profile presence in these places as a podcast producer. And I'm looking for just kind of contract work, or maybe part-time work on an ongoing thing, put in 15 to 20 hours a week. But it's basically under the heading of podcast producer. Now, look, I didn't go to school for podcast, not for production of whatever. Right. But here I am, man, 54 episodes deep in producing long-form style interview podcasts, a guy that, you know, spends a lot of time writing and thinking. And I'm on the front. Like, if you're looking for somebody to help create narratives and arc and content as far as conversation goes, that's where I would do, you know, what I do, versus if you're looking for the producer, if you're really looking for like the producer who's actually the editor to like do all of the post-production editing and video, and it's probably not really, but what I do, and to be honest, with the tools that are out there, like with these microphones and then async and their AI interface, like the editing for background noise and boosting of voices and volume and control, it's all just a click of a button.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's it's hard to find somebody to like actually look at you.
Mm-hmm. It is.
And I haven't had the chance yet for me to say yes to somebody, but my credentials would be, okay, here we are. Here's 54 published episodes. And then look at my experience. I pretty much wrote all this content plus 12 years of 3 sermons a week and writing. And, but so what I have is kind of what you have. I have the experience, but I don't have the credentials.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest with you, I've never had that stop me once. I've never ever had a client ask me where I went to school.
Right. Hello.
I've never had that limitation. I guess if I wanted to go get a job at like a media agency, that would be an issue, but that's never been the goal. And now I've had the opportunity to work with some bigger agencies. And again, they're not asking for credentials.
I mean, there are certain fields where that's necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, I want my surgeon to have gone to
I sure hope so.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But
for the creative, it's people don't seem to care about those things that much, and they're not required to learn. We have in the information age, we have everything we could possibly need accessible to us for free, or there are some great courses you could pay for if you really want to, but for the most part, YouTube and mentorship have been where I've grown, especially mentorship. I cannot stress how blessed I am to have been able to work with some of the folks I've been able to work with.
So who would you do you have somebody that's kind of like always in your speed dial that's a mentor?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Selena O'Day. So she is an incredible creative here in the Upstate. She's a photographer. All of the beauty and all of the skills that I have in the photography realm have come directly from her. I'm very blessed by Selena. So she has a studio in Taylor's Mill right across the hall from where mine is now. And I was lucky enough to get introduced to her through a friend and talked to her over coffee one day. And she was like, yeah, I'll teach you something. And that was 2.5 or so years ago. And that's where a lot of, especially the product photography stuff and the portraiture, the stuff that I really, really love has come from her. And then there's a film production company in town called Brando Jones, and they do a lot of the musician work here in the Upstate. They do music videos and they cut records and they do performance videos. And I've been very blessed by them as well. And that's been kind of a crazy full circle thing because in 2020, I went to Jones's house. So there's 2 guys, Brando and Jones. And I went to Jones's house and talked to him a little bit of like, hey, I bought a camera, like I'm doing this thing. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. And he cooked me a steak and he talked to me a little bit and he gave me this leather jacket because it was freezing outside. I didn't bring a jacket. So we're outside and he gave me this jacket and I absolutely adore the thing. I've outgrown it since, but that was like, oh, cool. Like I have some support here. And like, there's someone out there that like believes in me.
And those are guys I want to interview.
You'd love this guy. He's incredible. But about a year ago, I hit them up again. I was like, hey, I'm looking for work as a grip on set. And I show up and Jones looks at me and he's like, you're that kid I gave that jacket to. And he was like, you look like you ate that kid. For reference, since this is an audio podcast, I used to be about 120 pounds and I was very, very tiny. I'm still kind of a smaller guy, but I weigh about 180 now. And it was quite the change. So that was a full circle moment. And now I'm blessed that I get to go work on their sets. And me and Jones have some upcoming projects that we're really excited about. And now I get to go into that space almost as a peer, as a creative, where I was once, a kid who was just like looking for help. And that's something that when I have the opportunity, not that I have all the experience in the world or whatever, but when I have the opportunity to help guys who are coming up in the photo or video world, I jump at the chance. I'm like anything you need, any resource you have.
I feel like you kind of skipped a step. I mean, I think you and I both, and probably most people would agree that learning by doing is better than learning by book.
Oh, absolutely.
But what the book gives you is theory. Yes. So you have you have a rough, because you've read it and digested it and understand it, you have a rough mental framework of what you're supposed to do, but that's not the same as actually doing it.
No.
And so you're like, I feel like in some regards you skipped like the theory part and went straight to the doing.
Yes, and I've had to go back since,
okay,
and learn some of the theory and be educated, and that's where
that's what the Brando Joneses are for.
Yes, exactly.
And
That's Selena O'Day.
Yeah.
So that's where the mentorship comes in. Is they're like, "Hey, idiot, you need to do it this way because you've figured out a way to accomplish these things, but you don't understand why you're doing them." So mentorship is such a big deal. And when I do get the opportunity to help guys who are trying to learn, I'm very eager because I've been so blessed by people who are willing to help me, especially in an industry where folks aren't necessarily so friendly, because it's hard to make a living as a creative. It's really hard to find a client. Really hard to find.
It's just hard to make a living.
Oh, it's just hard to make a living. Period.
Yeah, but as a creative, I mean, and that falls into like what I do on the podcast end. I mean, I've already shared this with you, and I've said it before on the podcast. I mean, honestly, this is a creative enterprise.
Yeah, absolutely.
This Sunday Afternoon Smokes.
Absolutely.
I'm 54 episodes in, and I've made $0 off of it, which is fine. That's not why I do it. You know, I do it for these moments because I enjoy them. And I think, and once I do get that podcast lounge set up, I think there's a chance for some upward trajectory there.
Yeah. And it's never been, unfortunately, there's sometimes I take jobs that are about the money, but I'm not motivated by such things. If I can pay my rent and I can eat a PB&J, then that's good enough money for me.
So good. PB&J. Classic Americana. I mean, it's killer.
Oh, you put it in the air fryer and really ups it a notch? Oh, yeah.
Okay, now hang on. We got to pump the brakes right here. Well, it's not all that different because I've made, on the in a skillet.
Yeah,
it's just flat. That peanut butter gets messy though.
It does.
A grilled PB&J is stupid good.
No, it's good. Well, if you want to cut down on mess, then you opt to pay a few extra dollars. You get the Uncrustable. And then it's all wrapped in one, and then you throw that.
That can't be better than a homemade. Grilled
it's
PB&J.
not, but it's a little less messy.
That's true. It is. All right. So if you're gonna, what's your beverage of choice if you're gonna hammer a few Uncrustables in the air fryer?
Fairlife chocolate milk. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. I would just go. I'm a whole milk guy.
Okay, that's fair.
Just hammer a glass of ice cold whole milk with a PB&J, especially if it's toasted.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm with you. I'm a chocolate milk fiend.
Really?
Oh yeah. Again, back to the gaining weight thing. That's just about the only way I did that. Was Fairlife chocolate milk. Lots and lots.
Well, have you? How old are you?
I'm 28.
That's right. Okay, so you're a young buck. I'm twice, not twice your age. I'm 46. Because I was back in the day of like Nestle Quick chocolate powder.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know if that's still around.
It is, but the macros aren't as good on it. So I opt for the Fairlife just because it has the protein in it. But damn, they're getting expensive, man. The Fairlife is not cheap.
Is it?
Oh yeah. When I started lifting, they sold Fairlife chocolate milk half gallons at the gas station next to the store I was working at, and it was the same cost as like a protein shake. It was like $3. Now it's like $6.
Oh gosh,
so it's tough. So
well, do they make? I don't know if they do. I don't eat Uncrustables. Are you, when it comes to your peanut butter? Are you smooth or crunchy?
Smooth. Yeah, I'm a smooth guy. Although I did recently, when we had Snowmageddon, I went and bought some peanut butter, and they only had crunchy, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong.
It's good.
It's pretty good. It adds a little bit more texture.
My wife is one of those people who wants like the stupid, like natural peanut butter and all the oils
it's so
collected
messy,
on top.
and
you know what? I was trying to mix this up the other day, and I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this, and so I just opened up ChatGPT, and I'm like, hey, here's what I got. How do I mix this? And they're like, immersion blender. I'm like, hello, I have one of those. So let me just, but it's still too thin.
No, and it's like the oil. It's just not as enjoyable of an experience because I want like the thick creaminess of the peanut butter. I don't want like this oily mess that's getting everywhere because peanut butter is already kind of messy, especially if you're heating it up like we described.
Oh, yeah.
So the natural oil, man, it's just like it gets real messy. Yeah, smooth peanut butter and grape jelly. But I would opt for strawberry if the option was there.
Strawberry's delicious, or raspberry preserves.
Yeah.
You got to mind the seeds, but they're killer. Now, I prefer, honestly, if we're doing Nesquik powder, I mean, I would take the strawberry
100%
quick over the chocolate.
100%.
Okay. We're copacetic.
Yeah. No, I am generally a strawberry guy. I just feel like for the PB&J, the grape is more classic. But truly for my preference, I'd probably offer strawberry if I had the choice.
If you were, strawberry milk is just, it's off the Richter scale, dude.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Killer.
Yeah, listen, Fairlife, if they came out with a strawberry, I'd go bankrupt. That'd be over if they had a strawberry milk.
Fairlife, if you're listening and you want like a customer for life that's probably going to wind up in some addiction home somewhere, make Fairlife strawberry milk.
Yeah, make Fairlife strawberry milk and stop treating your cows so terribly. That would be my 2 requests. Not that I'm sure Great Value or whatever isn't treating their cows any better, but Fairlife did get hit with a pretty nasty documentary a few years back.
Oh, did they?
Oh yeah, it's heartbreaking stuff. If I had the,
I won't tag Fairlife in this episode.
Yeah, no, I understand why vegans do what they do. I just don't think that it's a viable diet.
I don't understand why vegans do what they do.
The cruelty elements of it's not the issue of eating animals. It's how we eat animals on a mass scale. I think that is what gets me. But that's the byproduct of living in
there are like 7 billion people in the world.
100%.
So,
no, there's no better solution. And that's why I'm not a vegan.
There's no other food.
Yeah.
There's animals and there's nothing else. I mean, there's obviously grains and vegetables and fruit and all that. But if you want protein,
no, you got to eat.
There's nothing else.
That's why they were put here.
That's exactly why they were put here.
But the moral issue of treatment, and then also like the way that they're processed isn't healthy either for us as humans to.
Well, look, I'm not for you shouldn't brutalize animals, right?
100%.
I mean, Proverbs says that a righteous man regardeth the life of his beast. Mm-hmm. So you should take care of your animals and you should treat them well. And I have seen a snippet or two of certain documentaries and showing how certain animals are treated, and I'm like, yeah, that's not okay. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to eat beef.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like there's not better options for us. I mean, you could eat locally or you could go to some of these farms, but now we're talking about it being cost prohibitive as well. So it's kind of catch-22 in that I'm not going to stop eating beef because it's my preference and I think it's the best, meat for most diets. But there's not really an option. I can't go to a local butcher and like trade and barter for meat. In my ideal world, I would trade and barter for everything. But that just doesn't exist.
Well, you should approach. I mean, it might not be your jam, but you have the skills. Like, you should approach a farm and do some. I'm sure you've tried this, yeah?
Oh, yeah. I have a friend, her name's Phoebe, and she has a cattle farm up in North Carolina, and she's going to pay me in a couple cows or whatever for some long-term work.
That's not a bad deal.
But it just didn't shake out. I need to hit her up again because there was a trade there, but one of the other people on that set were like, I'd rather get paid, and it turned into a whole thing. But, man, if I can...
He was probably a vegan.
I think what had happened is they had already killed a deer or two for that season, so their freezer was full. And they're like, I'd rather take the money. And I was like, but we'll see. Maybe I can recover that deal because I wouldn't mind half a cow for some video work. That would be pretty sweet.
Yeah. That'd be awesome.
But yeah, no, all kinds of interesting opportunities when you have a trade, like when you have a skill and you can go and offer it. I do trade and barter when I have the opportunity, which is a fun way to live. It's another benefit of like having a craft that you don't get when you're working for the man or whatever.
Well, and it's not taxable.
Yeah, benefits there.
Yeah, you're not putting money in the bank, but you're putting food in the fridge or whatever, and you don't have to. You can't. Bartering is great. I've done it. I don't know how many times with cigars.
Yeah.
Hey, man, and you think we can just swap some cigars for whatever, and
Yeah,
and everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Because obviously my retail price is nowhere close to what I pay.
sure. Yeah,
And obviously his price is whatever he's making is not what he paid or whatever hours he worked, and so he gets free cigars, free,
yeah,
quote unquote. He gets cigars, and I get whatever.
yeah.
And bartering is fantastic.
I love it.
We can barter some cigars for whatever.
Yeah,
I'm sure I can get you a box of whatever.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yeah,
I'd love to hook you up.
But back to the scope of your work, because you've worked across fitness, medical, real estate, portraiture, and of all those environments, I mean that's a lot.
Yeah,
And those are all very different from one another. And out of all those environments, what kind of work energizes you the most?
I really love the fitness stuff. But the portraiture is probably what like fills my cup the most, because there's an element of being able to capture someone and show them how they look to other people is really magical.
Well, I want you to clarify something for me. You said you love the fitness most, but the portraiture fills your cup the most. So what's the difference between the two?
What
do you mean?
I love the fitness stuff because it's fun, it's invigorating. It's given me the coolest opportunities. I got to travel internationally to work on some fitness stuff last year, but the feeling like I'm at most close to my purpose, like the most fulfilling.
It's emotionally satisfying.
It's emotionally satisfying. I was having a conversation with a photographer I really admire named James Morton recently for Upstate Community Press, and he described it as the race to love. So you get someone in the studio and you build a connection and you figure out them. And for like that hour that you're with them, you're like family. Like it's kind of like the bartender syndrome that I was describing earlier. Like they tell you your story or their story and you capture that and you give them this photo and it's like, this is you. That is incredibly moving. So I'm kind of tied between the portraiture and the fitness.
Yeah.
Because it's similar with the fitness because you get to capture someone's moment where they're, their peak performance, they go and accomplish something great at a competition and you show the emotion and the excitement and the relief and the failure, whatever that case is. And you capture years and years of work that were prepared for one day. So both of those things are very, very fulfilling. I'm hard pressed to choose between them, but those are the two things that I enjoy the most.
Well, how do you capture, because in portraiture, you're taking photos of people.
Yeah.
But like you said, you get them in the studio, y'all talk, they kind of share their story. And that old saying that a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So what's your approach? What's your angle? It's like, how do I capture this person's story in a photo? And before you answer it, I just want to throw a few things out there and you can put them in place. And this is just a guy asking questions. I don't know anything about photography other than point and click, right? There's lighting. There's obviously filters or whatever you want to do if you want to use them. There's their posture, their stance. There's their clothing. So how do you, when this, like, if I sat down and told you my story from the day I became a Christian in 1999 and everything I've been through until now, and now we want to capture this, how do you even begin to approach that?
So I take the key elements that stick out to me. So your faith is obviously a strong, center of you. So I would probably represent that in the lighting. And then your personality, I would represent in your clothing and your posture, and your interests, I would represent in elements in the photo. So like you would obviously be smoking a cigar. You'd probably
can't smoke in your studio, can you?
Hell yeah, you can.
All right. I'm in, man.
You
I
can
am
do whatever you want
in.
in Taylorsville, man. They're pretty hands off around there. Or, I like to go and take people into their environments. Right. So I might, if it's an author, I'd be in their writing room, or if it's someone who's in fitness, I'm in their gym or in their business, or maybe I'm in nature. Whatever elements that really speak to them, I try to incorporate as much of them. So like if I was shooting you, cigar, perhaps in your environment or your man cave or wherever you find your most peace, in your favorite clothing. And I'd probably have, like my main key light, up and to the right. And I'd have you like looking up to that. That's a pretty common motif in a lot of my work, is like looking up to the light. Because it represents something to me of looking up to a higher purpose, God,
It's
higher
like that
power,
heavenly aura.
Yeah,
It's like
I really like that, and it just looks beautiful. A lot of my best shots, the model is looking up to the key light, and you have this. There's not a strong shadow or a darkness or something like that. Or if I'm looking at someone who has a past or is more troubled, you might have a more moody photo. You might have elements of darkness and light kind of playing across them. So those are things that I incorporate, and sometimes those aren't active decisions. They're intuitive decisions or intuitive choices, or things that just kind of come to me in this session. My studio is called Gnosis Studios. Are you familiar with the term Gnosis at all? So
if it comes from the same thing as Gnostic.
Yeah, so Gnostics, Gnostics are that's a more complicated bag, but the idea of Gnosis is like direct knowledge or experience with God, and I have had experiences like that aligned with my purpose or inspired in my creation or in my art, and I wanted to continue to represent that, because there's often times where in my best moments, in my best shoots, in my best creation, like I'm not even there. Like I just feel like I'm a vessel, and those are very moving times for me. So that's kind of where I pulled the name from. And then if someone's not initiated in those ideas, I just say it means Greek for knowledge. And I leave it at that. Or if they're not that type of person, they don't get those details. But if they are, like, it means knowledge of God. And not necessarily just the understanding that God's with us, but like the experience that we get a little glimpse of when we're doing our what we're designed to do, which is create and represent and aligned with whatever our personal purpose is, on earth. So for me, that's being creative. And when I'm truly aligned or really doing something with passion, I feel that movement.
Whenever you take that kind of shot in portraiture, and it just kind of checks all the boxes for you and feels transcendent on some levels, do you normally find that your client has the same takeaways when they see the work?
They're always very happy or satisfied. Sometimes you get to have that shared experience. And sometimes they're not necessarily super vocal with their experiences. But sometimes you can tell. They're like, wow. Or they feel just represented it, or I did a really freaking good job.
Yeah.
And that's the fulfillment, that's nice, but that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I feel like called to do it. And when you do well, people like that, but I'm not necessarily, I am doing it for them, but it's if I don't do it, I don't feel well.
Sure.
So I don't have a choice. That this life that I've lived and these choices I've made and this path I've gone, there's been no other option for me. This is simply what I do. And everything else has fallen in line. Somehow rent always gets paid. And opportunity always arises when I am following the path I feel I should.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the guy named Christian Crocker of Citizen Media?
I am not.
No? Okay. Well, I'm sure you've looked at some of the photos that I've sent you for the Upstate Community Press. Yeah, he took those.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and I just really enjoy his work.
Yeah,
man.
excellent work.
They're so good. And I figured you were kind of in the same industry, and he's local, and you might know him. But how do you do color and black and white?
Yes, I am a black and white guy.
I love black and white.
I really love black and white. And I find that when you take a really good black and white photo and you look at it later, it works really well in color too. This was a conversation I was having with a friend of mine recently, that black and white is a really excellent way to hone your craft because you don't get distracted. You have to have the light right. You have to have your exposure right. You have to have things shaped well for a black and white photo to be good. And then the color kind of comes after, and you can make that decision later.
Do black and white photos, like if you took the exact same photo, one black and white and then one in color, are they telling different stories?
Yes. Yeah, they're telling different stories because you can have a lot of narrative with color. As much narrative and as much emotion you can have in black and white, you can have in color, but it's harder because there's more variables, right? There's more colors than just monotone. So when you just have black and white, you only have two elements to play in. But with color, there's a lot more expressiveness available. But I find that restriction is the ultimate path to creativity. Similarly to discipline is the ultimate path to freedom, right? So when you're a hedonist and you're not disciplined and you're going and doing everything you possibly can to feel good, you do not have freedom. You're just 10 times more a slave than you were before, and you didn't realize it. So similarly with creative freedom and shooting in color, you can have so many more options that you get distracted from your original goal. So it seems crazy to compare these two things, but these are the ways that I have interpreted life for myself. Is with my creative process, I go and take these things and apply it to my other experiences because it's the lens that I have. So telling to the original question of do they tell different stories? Yes. Because a color photo sometimes it's just a photo and it's not a piece of art, but black and white for me has a stronger artistic narrative. Does that answer your question? Sorry, I kind of got on a bit of a tangent there.
I don't know. It's hard to put your finger on it. Because like you might look at the same photo, one that's black and white and one that's color, and you might feel like, for obvious reasons, that the black and white is muted, but that doesn't mean it's silent. And in many cases, it's a better photo.
I agree.
I just don't know how to verbalize it.
It's a truer thing because restriction is good. Restriction gives us the capacity to digest. When you have a black and white photo, you have to focus on the subject more. You can't get distracted. There's a clear story. There's a clear message through the restriction. You have to focus on, maybe there's motion, or maybe there's a posturing, or maybe there's generally black and white. We have a strong interaction with light as well, because you have a little bit more control over those things. There's more depth to the blacks. There's more moodiness. So with moodiness, we have a greater generation of emotion. So color photos, great. There's so many color photos that are just incredible. But for me, black and white just strikes so much truer to my vision.
Where does smoke play better in black and white or in color?
Definitely black and white.
Okay.
Definitely black and white. Because there's more contrast with black and white. That's a big element with black and white is contrast because there's only one or the other. It doesn't blend in as much. And when we're shooting in black and white and you have smoke involved, you can clearly see the diffusion with the smoke, right? Like there's still shadowing there and stuff that comes out, and it's just not getting as lost. Smoke in photos is just such an allure for me. I love like kind of what we were talking about before with the expressions of different smoking, you know, cigarettes versus cigars versus pipes. All of those things have a different symbolism that we can play in, and black and white just is better suited for strong messages and strong symbolism.
Yeah. As you've grown in your craft, man, how have you felt, or how has your definition of good work evolved over time?
Narrative, how much narrative I can draw, how much I can communicate in a photo. It used to be a good photo was just, it looked good to the eye. It was in focus. The light was good, or the model was well posed. It used to be that I couldn't pose a model, or I couldn't pose a subject, or I didn't understand light. I didn't really understand my camera. So I just kind of struck gold. I'd take, 1,000 photos and end up with one that was excellent. And as those things have changed and my understanding has drawn, my ability to tell more of a story moved forward. So I can look at photos that I took at the beginning of my career and be like, yeah, that's a acceptable photo. It's okay photo. It's good, whatever. But looking at my capacity now, I see active decisions being made, not me getting lucky. Which is very much the case with my early work. It's like, oh, this photo is good. Why?
Well, that's the difference between me listening when I will go back and listen to this episode, because I will. Mm-hmm. That's the difference between episode 54 and episode 3.
Right.
You're growing in the craft.
Mm-hmm.
You're learning by doing. You're learning by experience. You've become more comfortable in the doing of it, in knowing what to expect, and knowing, and with interviewing or with public speaking, there's tone, there's cadence, there's mm-hmm. pacing, there's knowing what questions to ask, when to ask them, there's being inquisitive but not judgmental. There's mm-hmm. because I've told many people who have been hesitant to come on the podcast for various reasons. I always tell them 3 things. Number 1, I'm like, just relax. Mm-hmm. All this is a legitimate casual conversation. We're just talking. Number 2, I have no axes to grind. Mm-hmm. I'm not out to do a hatchet job on anybody. And number 3, I'm not here to ask gotcha questions. This podcast is strictly about me being curious about what you do and wanting to help you reach the people of the Upstate. That's it.
Yeah.
So just take a breath. It's going to be all right.
Well, sometimes you just have to start doing, because it's the only way, for me, it's the only way I can figure something out. I can have something explained to me, but until I do it and can review my work, just like you described, I'm not going to figure out why it was good mm-hmm. or why it was bad, mm-hmm. Because I try to not necessarily be passive, but I don't try to make very strong active decisions in, the moment. Right. Like that's kind of like a symptom of anxiety almost. Is like those things take over and you're like, oh, I need to do this way. And I need to think about it while I'm doing it. Like repetition and understanding through that process is how we improve in a craft, at least for my process. So yeah, you have to learn by doing. Just go.
You
just start.
Absolutely do. And you do it enough and you do it enough and you do it enough to the point to where you're doing it without even thinking about it. And mm-hmm. I've found that, like, if you do something long enough to where it becomes nearly second nature to you, sometimes it's very hard to teach somebody else how to do what you do.
Oh, yeah.
And I've done that before, in my past life as a pastor, trying to help somebody else develop that sermon, mm-hmm. quote unquote. And they're showing me the passage they chose, and they're showing me their points, and I'm trying to help this guy understand why his outline is not great.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
Because I've done it hundreds and hundreds of times and I don't really, and I'm trying to explain like critical thinking in what's being said here versus what you have on paper. And I don't know, man.
It's difficult for me to teach. I've found, even in topics where I have understanding, I'm eager to help and eager to answer questions, but I don't have the capacity to think ahead and assume what they don't know. It's really hard to know, like figure out what people don't know because you just, as a default, assume everyone has kind of the same.
You have to ask
knowledge.
questions.
Yeah. So being a teacher is a skill that I don't necessarily have.
I love teaching. And that's what a pastor is, right?
Yeah.
You know.
I love helping. Like it's my favorite thing in the world. But to go and be like, I'm going to teach you how to take a photo. No. Yeah. You can assist me while I work and learn by observing like I did, and I'll answer any questions and I'll give some basis of understanding or like, this is my process. This is how I do things. But to teach is difficult for me.
I mean, you have to let those people ask questions and you have to answer them and you have to give understanding because earlier when we were talking about smoke and black and white and you were talking about contrast, I'm like, and if you tinker around in like Canva or whatever, you know, you have the contrast slider. I don't even know what contrast is.
Yeah.
So I'm clueless when you're like, it works better in contrast or not in, or like, what is contrast?
So contrast is as the, you know, two things are different.
Yeah.
The contrast slider in your editing software is just increasing those values and how close they are to each other, right? So as you increase it, the difference between two elements increases or decreases. So they blend or become more separated. Contrast as an idea when we're shooting is, again, the difference of two things. It's as the word would imply.
Yeah. I mean, I know what the word means. I just didn't know how it applies in photography purposes.
Yeah. It's just the blending. Like it's either making two things more similar or more different, right? As you slide that. But again, even in the post process, like in editing, all those sliders, like I couldn't give you a school like textbook definition for what they do. It's like, I don't know, man, slide it all the way to the left, slide it all the way to the right. Which one do you like more? You know?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's how the uneducated operate. You just play with it until which one looks good to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like when you start off, you kind of like, you're more extreme in your choices. And then you get more intuitive and you can make those decisions. And then also you find that how those different elements interact. Because contrast as an idea is represented a lot of different ways in post-processing. Yeah. Post-processing. So there's that's a whole other can of worms, is the editing side of photography. There's a lot of folks who'd be like, oh, I don't edit my photos or whatever, you know, it's just out of camera. And I think that's like garbage. I think you should use every tool in your toolbox to make the best photo you possibly could. And it's great to be like a natural light photographer and my photos come out of my camera exactly how they should, but it's just not how I operate.
Yeah. Well, look, man, we're a little over 2 hours in and I've got some other things I want to get to, but I just don't. If you're on a time crunch,
I'm not on a time crunch, and I'm hoping to get through just about everything we can.
Okay, so yeah, man. Well, let's just keep rolling here, because just listening to you talk about your work, but how it's so, you feel like it's more than work. You feel like it's your purpose.
Absolutely.
And you said something to me before the show about. You know, I think it might be one of the most important things you said, but you talked about how important it is for people to work.
Yes.
Why do you think it's important for people to work, and what is it that work gives us?
So I think it's important for people to work because I think it's what you're made to do. But on a more practical level, it is. It's fulfillment. It's, you know, it gives something back to the community. It gives you something to do. Like, there's nothing worse than just sitting around to me. Like, some people like that, but it drives me nuts. It's also like, how else are you going to have any kind of impact in the short amount of time you have if you're not working? Even if you're doing something you love, you're still, there's effort involved. It's work. When I take a photo, I love doing it, and it's what I spend all of my time doing, but it is still an action. It is still work. So it is massively important to work so that you can have some kind of impact on others or your environment. Because why would you not want to be remembered in some way or have some kind of impact? Like, to just be passive in your environment, and like, it's wasteful to me. I have a strong distaste for people who do not work. I would consider myself lazy, but that's probably just for being hypercritical. So I don't have a beef against people who aren't productive. I just have an issue with people who don't take action. And to me, working is just simply taking action, and with the goal of ending up somewhere different than where you are right now. And I do think that we are put here to work, to accomplish, to achieve. And to not do that is incredibly wasteful of the gift we're given.
Well, we are. I mean, and we'll talk about Christianity here in a little bit, and some of your new journey.
Yeah.
But I mean, biblically speaking, way back in the book of Genesis, when God made Adam, that's the first thing he did was give him a job.
Yeah.
Here you are. I'm gonna make Adam, like Genesis 1:26. God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Let him have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." And so God made man in his own image, after his own likeness. And then God takes Adam and he places him in the garden, and he tells him to tend it and to keep it. That's like his first, it wasn't, "Hey, Adam, welcome to consciousness and to the world. Just go enjoy everything I've made. Here's a job."
Yeah.
And of course, that's pre-Genesis 3. That's pre-fall. Everything is very sublime and lovely. And so I would imagine that in Adam's condition and in the world at the time, work, the idea of work to him doesn't have the same idea
that we have
right. Of work, because we live in a society, like, there's a lot of people that work and work hard and that like to work, but there's a whole lot of people out there, it seems, that don't want to work.
Yeah.
And I agree with pretty much what you said. Work is kind of the, it's what you and I would call, and Americans call it, 4-letter words. It carries, with some people, it's the same.
Yeah.
They don't want to work. They're just indolent and lazy and would rather get, welfare checks and food stamps and this, that, and the other. And by the way, I'm not necessarily against those things if you're in a jam and need some help.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't be on them for 15 years.
Yeah.
I
think that's a symptom of the environment, right? When they haven't experienced like the joy that comes with fulfillment and doing a good job and the impact it can have on those around you. When work is just something you're doing for the man or something you've been told you're supposed to do, when it's, being lazy or, gaming the system, feels like you're getting one over on the people who oppress you, right? Because it's like, man, it sucks to have a job when the job sucks. It sucks to live in a world where, you feel like a cog and you don't have a purpose, and it's easy to fall into a state where you feel helpless. And so you're just going to take advantage, like others have taken advantage of you, or like the greater system has taken advantage of you. I don't agree with their choice, but I can understand that hole that they've dug.
Sure. Look, and I guess what I'm about to say in a nutshell is the reality that the world is a very hard place.
Oh, terribly hard.
It's a hard place. So creating a business and running a business and being successful at that business to the extent that it can pay your bills and provide a living for you and your family is not easy to do. Okay. That's number one, because you either have to sell a service or create a product that is in demand enough that everybody wants it. So being an entrepreneur and a business owner is just not for everybody. Mm-hmm. But that also means that people have to wind up working for other companies, doing jobs that they don't like to do because they can't follow their natural interests, because the fact remains there are 3 items that we need in this world to survive. We need shelter, we need clothing, and we need food. And none of those are free. Yeah. So it's, like I said, the world's a hard place.
It is.
And with entrepreneurship, I mean, and I'll just be candid, and I'm sure anybody listening to this podcast or that at least knows me knows, like, if I was a single man and my only employment was the cigar box, I'd be working for somebody else and doing that on the side. It's not a full-time job. I'm not making, $75,000 a year or whatever it is. And by the way, that's not an astronomical figure, $75K. I've built something cool and I'm very happy with it and proud of it, but it's not as though the cigar box is pulling me in bukus of cash. And so I don't know, man, just, you got to go to work.
No, you got to go to work. And it's heartbreaking in a way to see someone who hasn't tasted like the fulfillment and the satisfaction that comes from like a good day's work. And, it's how do we convey that? I don't know, but I feel personally very motivated to just work. If I didn't have photography, I would, I'd still be working some other job, and I would absolutely be finding a job that would help others. I think that's the way to get around how much having a job sucks, is if you can find fulfillment in helping someone or doing a service or a job that is at the service of others. It makes it a lot easier to, do the 9-to-5 thing. And again, there's a limited amount of those jobs. It's equally as limiting as working for yourself. It's great to work for yourself or whatever, but man, sometimes I'm just like, man, I wish I had a salary job. Like sometimes I wish I could just show up. I'm envious of people who just have a 9-to-5, just as envious as they are of me. And the grass is always greener and such. But there's definitely times where I'm just like, man, I wish I could clock out at 5 and not have to worry about this crap anymore. Because
there's 2 sides. I mean, like you said, the grass is always greener, but the rebuttal to that is, but it still has to be mowed and it still has to be, fertilized Absolutely. And weeded and, all that stuff. But like the deal with the people who work the 9-to-5 jobs, and there's nothing, and that's the vast majority of the population. There's nothing wrong with working a 9-to-5 job. If you're going to work it, do it well, work hard, represent your company well, put it in honest day's work. There's nothing wrong with that. But what they have is security. Yeah. This company that I work for, which these other people have created and built, and it's doing great. I just show up, I punch the clock, I punch in, I punch out, my paycheck comes, rinse, repeat, 52 weeks a year, I'm taken care of. Versus guys like us, we trade the security for the freedom and for the freedom of not being tied to a clock, but also the freedom to exercise our own creative impulses. But that brings its whole set of challenges. You've got to go out and get your own business. Like you're sending emails, you're sending DMs, you're showing up at people's places of business, you're attending mixers, you're meeting people, you're doing all the things that the 9-to-5 person doesn't have to do. they're two separate worlds, and not everybody is cut out for one or the other. But and I think I've said this before, but when I'm not a realtor anymore. I started my cigar business and got my real estate license, did them both at the same time. But and part of it was forced into it by the stage of life, but I just was also decided I'm going to bet on myself.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, it's, I didn't trust anyone to provide the way that I needed to give me the opportunity to do the things I felt called to do. So that security, at least for me, and the way that I experience it, just always felt like a prison in one way or another. It's like you're kind of trading those things, that freedom versus security. And there's days, there's months, there's weeks where, I'm a full-time photographer, but you got to shoot a lot of days. You got to work a lot of days for that to actually be like a true full-time job. And sometimes those calls don't come, and those things are scary. And I get why people don't want to make that jump, but I didn't feel like there was any other choice for me. So it's just simply, these are the cards I'm dealt, and I'm going to play them the best I can.
Well, it's a grind, and you have to be committed to it. You do.
Absolutely.
Like, okay, so here's a story about the cigar box. So when I had finally saved up what I had hoped was enough money to do the build, I went to Ryan Lockwood at Greenville Wheel Estate. Not
Great
real.
name.
Wheel.
Great name.
Yeah, Greenville Wheel Estate Collective. And I pitched him. I'm like, here's what I do. Here's my idea for this build. Can you build it? And he's like, this is a really cool project. There's nothing else like this. Yeah, I want to do this project just because. He's like, it's not normally what I do. It's in the neighborhood of what I do, but it's not exactly what I do. But it's such a cool project. I'm going to build it. And I'm like, cool. He's like, well, let me look at let me think about what we've talked about, consider everything we're going to have to do, and I'll get back with you on how much it's going to cost. Mm-hmm. So he calls back, and we have a conversation, and it was more than what I had. Mm-hmm. And so I'm talking with my wife, and then we also wound up having another call with a financial advisor of ours that was unrelated to the cigar box, but this is all finances, so I'm talking to him about it. And he just says to me, he goes, he says, and I told him, I don't have the money. He's like, well, you've got enough money to put down your deposit, and you've got enough money to almost get you there. He's like, dude, just let the NSF, the old NSF fee, the insufficient funds. He's like, just let the NSF be the fire for you to go out and get the rest. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and after talking to my wife and then talking to him, I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And, I showed up at Ryan's place. I slapped down an envelope full of cash because I think half was due up front and then the other half at the end. And I didn't have enough for the other half. I had a good chunk of it, but not all of it. And I'm like, all right, I put down the money, and now it's time to reach out to everybody under the sun, trying to get into every event I can, try and make things happen because I have more money to earn if I'm going to get this thing. Like, he's going to be really PO'd if I can't pay for this, and he's built it. But that's just the nature. If you're gonna do what you said, I don't trust people to provide for me in the way I want to be provided for or think that I can do for myself. Then I'm going to go it on my own. But if you're going to do that, you got to be prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing more motivating than seeing that rent coming down the line, you know what I mean? Or needing to pay that other half of the bill, or, man, I got to buy another camera. Like, that's expensive. Like, that kind of stuff is like, Yeah, cameras are really expensive. We'll get into that in a second. But those things are motivating and they're fuel for the fire. So it's almost a benefit to gamble on yourself, because when you have that risk, like you get hungry and you get the work done.
Well, look, and I think this is where the dividing line is when it comes to the entrepreneurial spirit and the person who wants to do something for themselves. And I think, honestly, we can break down life into various categories, but I think one of them is it's perspective. Mm-hmm. You can look, you can look at this task. I can look at the other outstanding bill that I know is due on the trailer or for my podcast lounge that I want to create and how much it's going to cost. And I can see how much I've got and how much I don't have. And I can either look at that and just get in the mire in it and sink down and let it defeat me. And so my vision never is manifested into an actual product. Or I can say, nothing's going to stop me.
Yeah. No, there's nothing. It's a blessing to have that type of motivation. I've always had this kind of thing in the back of my head, like I'm blessed to suffer. Like it's good.
Suffering is good.
Yeah.
Look, dude, I mentioned this in my men's Bible study group last Friday with everything my wife and I are going through. And it's people don't like to suffer. I understand why. I mean, I don't even like to suffer, but David said in the Psalms, "It is good for me that I have been afflicted, that I might learn thy statutes." Mm-hmm. In the book of Hebrews, it's talking about Jesus. It says, and it's not to get super theological here, but it talks about a guy named Melchizedek. But it says, though he were a son, yet learned he obedience by the things which he suffered.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Suffering is good.
It is.
And the Apostle Paul said to the church at Philippi, talking about the Lord Jesus, he said, that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his suffering. What we want is the power. Yeah. We want the payday. We want the glory. We want the glamour. We want to get to the mountaintop. But guess you cannot get to the power of the resurrection of Christ without going through the suffering part first.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I pull so many of my like ideas about life from weight training. It's like you don't grow.
God, the gym
unless
sucks.
You don't grow unless you stimulate that muscle, and you don't stimulate it without failing. You don't stimulate it without hurting and burning and suffering and pushing yourself beyond those limits. I'm a big proponent for training to failure, and there's like nothing more miserable than like fighting through those last few reps. But those are the only things that are going to accrue any amount of growth. And it's the same thing with anything else. If you're not willing to go and suffer and work and be stressed and grind and do those cold calls or send those DMs that you're terrified to go and put yourself out there, how would you ever expect yourself to succeed?
Well,
so
again, it's perspective about failure. I mean, this isn't the exact quote, but it's along these lines. It was Thomas Edison said, "I've not failed 1,000 times. I just figured out 999 ways that a light bulb won't work."
Yes, 100%. Absolutely. And that is the exact attitude you have to have. And it's like that like alchemical fire that we have to burn in to be purified and to grow as people. It's suffering's the main component in that, to like go through that fire. And I'm deep in it right now, to be honest. Like it's miserable. It's brutal.
Well, look, man, and for my listeners, I'm sorry, man. I don't want to bore you with talking about my wife and her stroke and where we're at. But suffering and hurting and going through the ringer, if you can't run from it. Mm-mm. If you run from it, you will it's going to only hurt more, and you're not going to get rest and peace. But if you will, and of course, look, this depends greatly on what you believe spiritually and what your relationship with God is like. Mm-hmm. If you know him, if you know who God is through Christ, and you will embrace the difficulty and the suffering, it will bring you closer into a more tender relationship with him. And of course, if you don't know him, suffering may be the avenue he's using to get you there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I touched on hedonism earlier, and it's like when you think like the highest like good is like pleasure, you're only going to feel less and less fulfilled. Like when I was a hedonist in my like earlier years, like I'd never felt worse. I'd never felt more unfulfilled. I'd never felt more miserable. And that like instant gratification did nothing to heal that, the like hour of relief that you might have from whatever vice you choose is not going to bring you any closer to happiness or fulfillment or peace. It is merely a distraction from the work that must be done.
Yeah, well, that's the whole danger with narcotics, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they say, like, there's no high like the very first one. And so in order to obtain that, because your body naturally develops a tolerance, mm-hmm. I mean, case in point, even not with, like, quote-unquote narcotics, here you and I are with your 3 milligram nicotine pouch and mine with my 15. I use these, and rarely do I feel any effect. But like the first time I used one, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, it's like I'm sitting here vaping, and it's like the only time I haven't feel good about it is like the first one in the morning. You know what I mean? And that's great. And then the rest of the day, it's just annoying that I have to do it.
But that's the thing. And then contrast that. There's that word contrast. Contrast that with what Jesus said in John 4 to the woman at the well, where he said to her, he that drinketh of this water shall thirst again, but he that drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst.
Absolutely.
There's the satisfaction.
Yeah.
There's the peace. There's the rest. There's I'm no longer thirsty or hungry for anything else this world has to offer because my soul is satisfied. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
to your point about hedonism.
Yeah. And it's not the most appealing water. It is, but it isn't, especially when you're in those moments where you have those instant gratifications and all that kind of thing. When I decided to give my life to Christ, my suffering is only increased, but my peace and my satisfaction and my fulfillment with my choices is tenfold. But the things to go through and the things to cut out and the burdens that we take on are harder. And it's like, Christ, he says, take on my yoke. It's a peaceful one. You're still putting on a yoke.
Yeah.
You still have to work. You're still a bull in the field, pulling this, tilling the field or whatever. Like, it's still a burden.
It's not just much of one though.
It is.
Like, do you understand the passage?
Yes. But my point is that it is not complete relief from the.
No. Well, look, and I hope that question didn't sound judgmental or critical, no. But just for the listener, if they're not familiar with the passage there in John where Jesus says, take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And in that he said, you shall find rest unto your soul. So in those days, they would use a yoke of oxen to plow their field. But, when you have a young ox and you're wanting to train him on how to walk in the yoke, like you don't just put a total greenhorn in there that doesn't know what they're doing. So they would take a young ox that had never been in the yoke before and put him in the yoke with an experienced ox. So he's in the yoke and he's working, but the experienced one's doing most of the work.
Yeah.
He's still doing some, but he's not doing much. Mm-hmm. And so when you're going through this life with the Lord Jesus in the yoke with him, man, he's doing all the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're not working and you're doing nothing, but you're resting in him to handle the things that you cannot control. Mm-hmm. And that's So, and I think some people I don't know who are worried about, you mentioned, and I'll get some more information out of you here in a minute about how since giving your life to Christ, you feel like your suffering has increased, but your peace and your rest has increased tenfold. Look, if you think that Christianity offers you a life of free suffering, you fundamentally misunderstand what Christianity is. It's not a joyride and everything is sunshine and roses, but it's that he's with you through them.
Correct. Which is a great relief, but to take that walk is to make hard choices and to put away things that are pleasant, or are gratifying or pleasurable in the flesh and in the worldly things that most people are going to take shelter in, and to strip those things away and like be purified is not always the most pleasant experience, but the payoff is much greater, and the worth is there. If you're not going to hold yourself to a moral standard, or you're not going to hold yourself to a higher standard, you can have an easier life in theory. You can have a life that might, from the outside, look better. If you don't have a moral standard, you don't care about taking advantage or taking the easy road, or putting yourself on top when you're putting others or Christ first. It normally means taking on things that for you are going to require more effort or more suffering or more work, and that is probably one of the things that people might be scared of or worrisome or hesitant of. So if you are going to live the life that you're called to live, it means putting down things and cutting things out in almost a violent way that shouldn't be there in the first place, but have grown.
Yeah.
And that's more so what I mean with putting on that yoke is that there are requirements that are not pleasant once you've grown used to them.
Yeah. Another paraphrase here, but the story goes that someone basically asked Leonardo da Vinci way back in the day how he carved a lion out of a block of marble. Mm-hmm. And he basically said, well, I look at the marble and I carve away anything that doesn't look like a lion.
Yes.
Yeah, you've heard it, right? In the scripture teaches us in the New Testament that we as Christians are being conformed into the image of Christ, which means here's the image of Christ and here's the image of you. And anything in you that doesn't look like Christ needs to be carved away. Yeah. And like you said, sometimes that's unpleasant. And that means, and in a practical sense, if you become a Christian, and by the way, I hope you do, whoever's listening. If you're not, I hope you do. And it's not, it's a wonderful is a poor word, but it's a wonderful thing to be a Christian. But what that simply means in practicality might look like, you've had this friend for 15 years and you've known them a long time and they're really a really, really, really good friend. But now that you're a Christian, their influence on you is really, really, really bad. And you probably should consider severing that friendship, and that's going to hurt. Yeah. That's what we're talking about.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. No, that's absolutely the thing. It's like cutting away these things that you found shelter in or pleasantries in or enjoyed, but they just simply do not align anymore. And those are hard choices. Those are hard paths to walk. Yeah. So those are the ways in which my suffering has increased, but my peace has as well. It's like, I don't have to do these things alone.
And he'll replace those things with better
100%.
things.
Absolutely. But in the meantime, kind of sucks.
No, it does, man. It hurts. And by the way, in the comfort, Jesus went through everything he's asking us to do.
Absolutely.
And so it's not as though he's just, yes, God is holy and God is all of the things that we are not, but he's not sitting up there just demanding of you to do things that he wasn't willing to do himself.
Yeah.
He did. I mean, he was betrayed by Judas Iscariot, who walked with him for, 3.5 years. Mm-hmm. He knows what it's like to lose friends. He knows what it's like to lose followers. He knows what it's like to suffer. He knows what it's like to be hungry. He knows what it's like to be rejected.
Yeah. And the biggest thing for me is like, he knows he was tempted in the same ways we were.
Absolutely.
And did not fail. And like, that is the craziest thing for me, because as a man who's like lived a life of indulgence, it's crazy to be like, he had the same experiences I did. He had felt the same impulses because he was a man. And he didn't fail. And those are the things that I need to model my life after. Because it's like, it's a temptation. And the indulgence is the hardest parts for me. And my newfound alignment and the new way that I will choose to live my life is difficult.
Yeah. Well, that's okay, man. So how did you come to Christ?
I always felt like I was kind of circling the drain, for lack of a better word. I always believed in God. I was raised in a Christian house, but I didn't have the best experiences in church, because while there's so many beautiful things about the practice, it's still people, and people are.
Well, I heard a great quote recently that said, if you had a bad experience in church, you didn't have a bad experience with God, you had a bad experience with people.
100%. And then I, as most young people do, I was like, this probably isn't for me.
Yeah.
But I always had a strong belief in something greater than myself. I thought it was foolish to believe that there wasn't. Nature is the greatest affirmation that God loves us there is. Like, you can't look around and have the experiences that I've had and be like, yeah, this is it. I think that's just foolish. But I started looking for God in other places. And started to look deeper and try to find understanding into the ways that our world functions and the way that God emanates into the material, and try to basically like take the things I wanted of myself, like the change that I wanted of myself. I tried to take it in my own hands and failed, obviously. So for many years, I wanted to take a more hands-on approach into my spiritual experience and my spiritual change and my, like I said, alchemical fire earlier. Like, that is definitely more my bag, in the esoteric and in the mystical. So I looked for a lot of relief in those things. And I had affirming experiences, like I had connection, but I didn't have the true change that I was looking for. So those things just kind of always let me down. And I increased in knowledge, and I gained virtue, and I gained a lot of knowledge and insight, but I didn't have peace. I didn't have change. I didn't have alignment. I didn't feel how I thought I should feel. And that was frustrating. So I just kept banging my head against the wall. And I have a buddy of mine, my best friend, Michael. He and I have lived similar lives. We have similar issues, similar temptations, similar vices. And we're having these conversations. We're like, man, something's got to change. Like, I don't know what it is, but something's got to change. We got to do something differently, because like, this shit ain't working. And I had been attending a Bible study with some friends because I liked those conversations. I've always enjoyed those conversations about God and how we think it works and how we think what are like the mysteries, like what I'm always looking for knowledge. So I started to go because I met a cat named Cole who had really good knowledge, and he was one of the first people who like really contextualized the Bible. Like he read it in a way where he understood that it was a different geopolitical context than what we have. And like, while these things are applicable, you have to understand the environment and the world that they lived in, and why we made these choices, and why these things are this way, and why these things are written this way, because they had literary trends and environmental trends and cultural and political trends that were different than ours, and we have to understand those things. And I was like, oh, this guy, he actually like knows what he's talking about. So I started like listening to Cole a little bit more. And Cole was like, well, I got this group of guys and we get together and we chat about these things. And I was like, okay. So I started going and chatting with him, and I liked to kind of poke Cole with some of my ideas and some of my concepts and some of the things that I had knowledge of, and see what he would spit back. So I wouldn't necessarily go to antagonize or argue or anything like that. I just wanted to see what he thought of my ideas. So start hanging out with these guys, and it was quite the motley crew. So we have Cole, who went to a Bible college in California. So he had this incredible like melting pot of different cultures and different ideas and different opinions on these things that they were studying at this Bible college. And he was just like a wealth of knowledge. I really appreciated that. And then we had other guys who were more like me and into the more hidden stuff, the more esoteric. We also had guys who they wanted, to change. They wanted to be different, but they struggled with darkness in really hard ways. And we just had very real conversations and real support as to those things. And that was very moving. Like, it was nice to go and like have check-ins and hear from these guys who struggled in the same ways I did, or struggled in different ways. I had kind of nice to see guys who had it, way worse in a lot of ways, but they were still trying to find peace in one way or another. So I continued to attend and listen and kind of let these things, ruminate in my mind. And then we're having this conversation of, judgment. And it's not just simply that like we will be judged, and it's not just like you have the ticket or you don't kind of thing, like the idea that I had. But Cole like had the right words for me. He was like, man, it's not just that like you're going to be judged, it's that your body of work as an artist will be judged. And if Christ or God isn't in the middle, all of that is just going to be burned away. Like, it's just going to vaporize. It's not going to last. It's not going to have real impact. And that really struck me, because as an artist, like, of course I want to have something that lasts. Of course I want to make an impact. Like, as crazy as it sounds, I want a timeless piece. Who wouldn't, want their art to live forever? So that really struck me. So the next day I'm journaling and doing my normal morning ritual, and I'm like writing, and I'm like, man, Cole really struck me with this. If I could get just one photo into the kingdom of heaven, I wouldn't be such like a worthless piece of shit, is my exact thing that I wrote in my journal. And I feel so worthless all the time. And I don't want to feel that way. So that really, really struck me. And I'd already kind of had some experiences in December while I was going through this big life change, separating from this relationship that had been like the center of my world for 4 years. I had already started to feel this poking. But that was kind of the final piece for me. But I had some really intense experiences in December. There were pretty blatant signs for me. And I touched previously on how I'd been looking for relief and change as a man, and the ways that I wanted to be and the things that I wanted to feel. I had worked and strived and researched and read and done all kinds of things to try to change. And like one desperate, snotty-nosed, sobbing prayer gave me more relief for longer than I had ever experienced in my adult life from my specific convictions and issues. And that was bonkers for me. Like I was just like, my issues destroyed this relationship. God, just give me relief from this thing. Make me the man that I should be. Let me lead this relationship. Let me salvage this thing. Let me be what I should be. Like, please. I cannot handle this any longer. Like, let this suffering that I'm about to experience as I go through this change, like, let this be atonement, or payment's a bad word, but like, let this be the catalyst finally to like not be this way anymore. And I had like a glimpse of that. I tasted a piece of that. And while I still continue to struggle as I'm sure I will for the rest of my life, I had relief for the first time ever. I'm a kind of a results-based guy, and that's like harsh. And there's many more things that influence me. There's many more beautiful things than just results that come with Christ. But to get what I wanted and what I needed and what I felt like I truly deserved or desperately needed in my life from that, versus all of the other hours I had spent reading and researching and trying to figure out and decode to change myself, and gotten zero, gotten nothing, gotten, no relief. That was blatant in this is the path for me. So I was like, okay, well, all these other systems and all these other things and all these other books that I read gave me nothing. But just this prayer and complete openness gave me what I wanted. So obviously I'm going to head in this direction. And then I've been doing these articles. I've been talking with business owners. I've been chatting with people in my community. And every single person that I talked to that was having impact or success or doing something that I wanted to do, they were all walking with Christ. Like it was all of them. And I was like, man, if that isn't a flashing red sign, I don't know what is. And then there's a few other little things that happened that convinced me of what I already knew, which is this is where I belong. This is what I should do. So that's the short answer of about 6 months of experiences. But I always had a relationship with God. I always believed in God. But to have the experience and change and result that I had compared to all the other systems and all the other things that I had tried, I was like, okay, well, this is what I should do. So those things convinced me to take the leap that I knew I should have done forever. Like I always knew in the back of my head, this is where I belonged. I just didn't want to accept that, or thought I knew better, or thought I was going to be the one. Josiah was going to be the one to change. That's not, I don't have the power to do that. And I was looking for the power to do that in all the wrong places. So I decided I was prideful and a fool to think that I could do those things, and decided that I, for the first time, was going to trust someone else to do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. Like, we can be quote unquote better people. We can change ourselves to a certain extent, but it's only for a short while.
Yeah.
The only lasting, true transformation comes through Christ,
mm-hmm.
and believing that Jesus is the Christ, crucified for the sins of the world, buried, resurrected 3 days later. Because when you believe that, then, as the scripture says, it is God which worketh in us both to will and to do of his good pleasure. God begins to work inside you and transform your heart and your mind and to align you with his ways. Mm-hmm. And his ways are better than our ways.
Yeah, and they're better than anything else that I had tried. And I still have a pretty holistic view on, and I still hold a lot of the worldview and a lot of the opinions that I did before. But it's kind of like I was only going up one level, where I was only going to, I wasn't going to the boss. It's a poor way to put it. But that was kind of it, is like, why would I waste my time doing all these other things and working with all these other, like spiritual practices when I knew like the one, I can just go right to him.
Yeah.
Through Christ, instead of like all the other wild stuff that I was trying to pull power from. And that was just my experience. And it's been strange. Like when I share this story with a lot of folks, they give me a lot of weird looks because I'm like the last guy that you'd expect to hear that from. But it is scary to like admit some of those things, because there's a lot of like rejection that you can experience because of it. But I'd rather have that relationship than any other relationship. Mm-hmm. Like there's nothing more terrifying than getting to the end and Jesus being like, I never knew you.
Oh yeah.
Like
that's not good.
That is 10 times more terrifying than anything else I could imagine.
Yep.
So that's the way it's going to be. And I know that all of the things that have been removed will be replaced and be better.
Yep.
So that's just kind of where I'm at.
Awesome. Well, look, man, I've got one final question for you, but before I ask it, is there anything else that you want to touch on before we wrap it up?
No, I think you're going to get into the thing that I want to talk about last, because it kind of ties into this. But thank you so much for having me and chatting with me. It's been cool to kind of say some of this stuff out loud, because like I said, it's not something I've been very public with. And it's always great to talk about art, because for me, God and art and the like liberal sciences are so intertwined, which I think will tie into your next little segment.
Well,
here.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to ask what you think I'm going to ask.
Okay, cool.
I was kind of near the end here, but it's something you obviously want to touch on. Let's do it.
Yeah, so I became a Freemason 4 years ago, and that kind of ties into that whole spiritual practice. And there's a lot of misconceptions in what that is and is not. So I guess, do you have any kickoff questions from that?
I don't know a whole lot about the Freemasons. Let me rephrase that. I don't know anything at all about the Freemasons. How about that?
Okay.
So you're free to enlighten me.
Yeah, so Masonry is one of the most beautiful things I've ever done with my life. It has given me so much as a man, as a business owner, as a friend, and as a brother. It is not for everyone, because it is a time commitment, and it is another standard that you have to hold yourself to. But what it is not is, it is not a religious system. It is not a political system. It is not who runs the world. It's not satanic. And it is not a magical system, which is what I, 4 years ago, had the inkling that it was. What it is an incredible brotherhood of friends and support, a very strong moral system, and a set of tools to be a better man in a societal standard, not necessarily a religious standard. So here's how to be a good husband. Here's how to be a good brother. Here's how to manage your time. Here's how to control your vices and increase your virtues. That's what Masonry is that it is a system of allegories to teach us virtue and how to be better. But it is also in many ways secret, and not as secret as people would assume. It's not as crazy as one would assume. So when I got into Masonry, I was also starting to get into Hermeticism and Kabbalah and a lot of these other things that came either predated Christ and were systems that had developed in culture before then, or had kind of come out of when the Greeks freed Egypt from Persian rule. There's a lot of blending that came from those two cultures, and a lot of systems of philosophy and theurgy, which is what we'd call like God working, which is like trying to purify and improve oneself for the hopes of like salvation's a bad word for this, but that's kind of what they were going for because they didn't have any better idea of what to look for. So as I started to research these philosophies and these systems, I became interested in Freemasonry through a friend because I thought in ignorance, as most people do, that they had some crazy secret that I was missing out on. And while Masonry does have a set of symbols and symbolism and mysticism, it is comes down more to do with virtue and clean in the sense of good living than it does in the sense of like ritual or magic or power. So it is a very beautiful, well-crafted, well-regulated brotherhood that supports their community and supports the men around them to do good. So that's kind of its core essence.
Nice. I know one other guy that's a Freemason, but I haven't talked. I've talked to him a little bit about it, not a ton, but it's, I don't know. People are just, you know how it goes. Mm-hmm. You hear something, you think they're a little goofy, but you don't really know a whole lot, and you just start saying stuff about.
Yeah.
And so, the Freemasons have probably been that group for hundreds of years that have been, like you said, they're like the Bilderberg group, mm-hmm. They're the World Economic Forum. They're running the world secretly behind. And all these presidents were Freemasons. And, it's what is it? The Nick Cage movie where they steal the Constitution.
Yeah, National Treasure.
National Treasure. And it's all this, it's just deeply mystical and magical and political and sorcery and just, Yeah,
and it's, so we're pretty strict on being apolitical and a-religious because it's not the focus of what we want to do. We want to support our brothers and we want to improve as men, and we're not going to place judgment on the ways that they do that. So like the way that they worship God or the way that they vote or whatever, those are their opinions. They're not ours, and that what our bond transcends their opinions, right? However, it's kind of blatantly Christian when you get into it. Like there's, and I think that, that's kind of a hot take, but, most of our, system pulls right from the Bible. This isn't like a secret, but like what we'll call our system, like the way that we, invoke our ideas and our systems for being better, is based off of the allegory of like King Solomon and the building of his temple, right? Yeah. So like Masons are a craft. So like a lot of this came early from like guilds, trades guilds in like medieval or post-medieval time. These guys were Masons, like they built stuff and they built it to be beautiful. And so they used like the most beautiful thing that they had reference for, the most well-built thing for God that they had reference for, which was the temple that Solomon built. So we use that story as a way to symbolize how to manage your time, how to be better, how to hold yourself to a higher standard and be an upright man before God. And we use symbols because when you give a man a symbol, he can interpret it in its full capacity rather than explaining an idea. Like if I tell you like, the golden rule or whatever, or if I tell you a virtue or explain it to you, my explanation of that is going to be incomplete because I am incomplete. I do not have the full capacity to communicate perfectly. But a symbol, when meditated upon or thought upon or contemplated, has the capacity to represent the whole of an idea.
Yeah.
So that's why we use symbolism. And then the secrecy element is mostly because we understand that not everyone is going to be motivated to be better, and not everyone is going to be prepared for these lessons. You know, like it's similar to Christianity where like you can lead a horse to water, but they have to make those choices for themselves. They have to be willing and open to accept Christ. You can't force it upon someone. So we have secrecy to guard against folks who want to know but aren't ready to deploy. They aren't ready to truly accept and devote their time and attention and willpower to becoming better.
All the looky-loos.
Yeah, exactly. And then there, you know, the secrets that we have, because of the information age, basically all of our system is on the internet. So the only real things that are secret are like the standards that we hold each other to, which we call obligations, and then the like ways that we recognize each other. So, you know, if I was in a pitch black room with another Mason, I could recognize that he was one without us communicating.
Yeah, secret handshake.
Yeah. So those things are the only real true secrets that remain. But like our allegory, our story, our degree, most of those things are in plain text. And have been for hundreds of years. It's just with the information error, they're plainly there. But most people don't have an interest in Masonry because they don't want to dedicate the time that it requires, or they're not motivated to or feel called to improve.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the secret comes from. It's to kind of guard the system from being diluted, because it requires work to teach, and it requires work to mentor, and it requires work to learn the system and be able to execute it in a beautiful way to continue the craft and hold it. So it's kind of the secrecy element is to keep the craft well maintained.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But one of the coolest things I've done with my life, highly, highly recommend, if you have an interest to research it. And they do some incredible things. Shriners Hospital is funded by the Shrine, Hejaz Shrine, which is a Masonic body. Most people don't.
You know, a guy I interviewed a while back, Jeff Pence from Magic Rooster Tattoo.
Yeah.
He's, their Shriner and do all that stuff.
Yeah, the Shriners, they're cool guys. They're the only appendant body that allows alcohol. So they're like the party cats, the frat boys of Masonry, but they are the philanthropic.
So you're not a Shriner.
I'm not a Shriner.
I gave it away right there when you came in, and I offered you a few things. And you're like, all right, so we know. All right, we're drilling down. We'll find out, buddy.
Yeah,
I'll put on my Sherlock Holmes hat and get my pipe, and I'm gonna find you out.
Yeah, I don't have anything against drinking. I just don't enjoy it personally.
Sure.
It's just like I've always been more of a cannabis guy myself.
All right, man. Well, look, I actually have two more questions for you. So, some people that you mentioned here, I know that I'd like to reach out to Brando Jones.
Oh, yeah.
About coming on the podcast. You've obviously been a guest. You know what it's all about. You know how I roll. You got a couple other recommendations for me?
Yeah, so I some of the other Upstate Community Press guys are interested in coming and chatting. Jake Henderson definitely needs to make his way back on the show because he's always a fun conversation.
Cream puff.
He's so smallest man I've ever met. Can't even lift a 5-pound dumbbell. Let's see. I would Brando Jones, Joshua Jones, is definitely a great chat. the Upstate Cats.
Well, doesn't your where is he at? Your buddy Wes. Does he have a partner? Like Sean Martin, you know Sean,
Yeah, I do know
right?
Sean. Yeah.
And he was telling me he's got a couple of young guys, and I think it's because Wes is the musician, right?
Yes.
And he's got a partner, and they run. Are they the owners of Upstate Community Press?
So Wes is separate from that, but the guy who Sean was telling you about is the other part of Upstate Community Press. So that's Duncan Morrow and Jerry Plum. Those are the two musicians that he was referring to. There's another cat, Eddie, who's a part of the Upstate team. But Wes, he lives in Vegas. He's a musician out there.
Well, that's not going to work.
But yeah, Duncan Morrow and Jerry and Eddie are all incredible characters, talented musicians, and good friends of mine that would love to participate in the show. I was actually telling him about it today, and Duncan was like, "Yeah, I want to do that." So
well,
we'd love to have him on.
You can hook me up in a group email or group text.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
whatever.
I'll get him over here. 100%.
We'll make it happen. I can't do 3 guests. I just don't have enough mics for it. I can do 2.
Okay.
Unless one of those guys, they just want to swivel back and forth and share a mic.
We'll work it out. We'll work it out.
All right, man. Final question.
Yes, sir.
And then we'll wrap it up here.
No, you're good.
If you could talk to the version of yourself who felt directionless and unsatisfied years ago, what would you tell him now about work and purpose and patience?
I'd tell him to go to Brits Brothers Gym. Straight up, without a doubt, I tell him to go to Brits Brothers Gym and pick up a weight and eat a sandwich because he's skinny. And I would tell him that discipline is the key to freedom, not listening to punk rock and doing whatever you want. And I'd tell him to start journaling. But as far as the work element, working and having purpose is the ultimate fulfillment. It's what we are here to do. And I, without a doubt, hold the belief that I will work every day until the day I die. And up until recently, I believed that I would wake up and start working again. So work is essential and beautiful, and it is the only thing that'll give you any kind of satisfaction.
Nice. All right, man. Last time, what's the website and how can people follow you on social?
So they can find me, Josiah Hartline, on Instagram. That's the best place to reach me. You can check out my work there. If you're interested in telling your story in another format, you can reach us at upstate.press. Upstate Community Press reaches out to local businesses, tells their stories, and helps them along the way. We want to bolster community and build a living archive, all the cool stuff going up on the Upstate.
Sweet. Well, look, man, thanks for carving out, 3 hours to sit down with me and just chew the fat.
I appreciate it, man. This has felt like 5 minutes. I could talk all night. This is such a blast. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet, man. Well, you've been listening to Sunday Afternoon Smokes. Don't forget to give me a follow. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Share it on your socials. And share it with the world, because Sunday Afternoon Smokes is really sweet. We'll talk to you soon.